like to call the meeting to order for the Board of Supervisors for the July 5th, July 9th meeting. And with that, welcome the public. And Mr. Williams, would you lead us in a prayer, please?
Oh, Father, once again, you have led us to this place, to this building on side of the road in Saluda, Father. And we just want to thank you. We want to thank you for the rain. Thank you for the heat and the cold. Father, now be with us as we try to do county business, Father, that the things we do and say, Father, that will show unity and togetherness. This is my prayer in Jesus' name. We pray. Amen.
Ms. Riccardi, would you lead us in the pledge, please?
Would you please rise for the pledge? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Hammond, would you have roll call, please?
Mr. Williams.
Here.
Mr. Bill Harris.
Here.
Mr. Crittenton.
Here.
Mr. Jesse.
Here.
Mr. Don Harris.
Here. All right, let's get into business. If y'all would like to change the venue to outside, we could do that. Okay. It's still plenty hot for me, but anyway, moving right along. Approval of the consent agenda. A motion would be in order, please.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made by Mr. Crittenden, second by Mr. Williams. Any discussion? I will just say, looks like we're approving a lot of the minutes, and I think that brings us pretty close to up to speed. Is that correct, Ms. Hammond?
Yes, so
With
next meeting will be June 4th, regular meeting, and tonight's meeting.
Okay. I know there's been a lot of changes in this and that and the other, but we're gradually, slowly but surely getting to where we need to be on that, correct?
Correct.
Thank you. I'll make a notation, too, for anybody that has the agenda in front of them. There's been a couple of add-ons. We have under under regular agenda items, we're adding a J item, H item, which Ms. Riccardi will talk about Buddy Park, and then J is airport. That has been added as well. Okay? That's for anybody that's not up to speed. And I've gone through a couple of changes on the agenda this week, so just wanted to make sure everybody was up to speed on that. All right, good. Moving along. We have a motion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris.
Aye.
Mr. Crittenton.
Aye.
Mr. Jesse.
Aye.
Mr. Williams.
Aye.
Mr. Don Harris.
Aye. Motion carried for approval of minutes.
And Mr. Chairman, before we move on, if you'd allow me a little discretion.
I will give you a little discretion. Go ahead.
Apologize for the late minute addition to item J. I can explain that, and I've already spoken to some of the public here tonight about it. What occurred is we got an email from Parrish and Partners and Mark Flynn back around the middle to early part of June about the airport layout plan, and it actually came in so early that it missed our radar on making this meeting's agenda, and we discovered that this morning. So we added it, and we sent out a new packet, new agenda, new everything, even to everybody on our distribution list. It's pretty standard, and I know one of the adjoining property owners here today hasn't had a chance to read the airport layout plan, but it's my understanding, knowing the situation a little bit, a lot of his concerns were addressed in that layout plan, and it probably should be okay. But I can't speak for him and wouldn't dare to do so. But I do apologize for that mix-up. We try to catch all those, but it seems like the July meeting's always one of those things because the holiday hits and you're scrambling on a short week. And then here we go, we get an email too early and that just didn't get in the radar. So apologies from staff on that.
Thank you, and I'm sorry for any inconvenience to anyone as well for that. Moving right along, item B and C, disbursements and payroll. Any particular discussion that needs to take place on that? If not, I'm moving to public comments, and I'll open the floor for public comments.
Thank you. First of all, each speaker will give his or her name for the record, given one opportunity to speak, and note that your remarks are to be addressed to the Board of Supervisors, not the audience. Comments are limited to 3 minutes each unless you're representing a group that is all here. We do have one public speaker card submitted by Dawn Moore from Urbana.
I believe that's 15 minutes because she's representing a group.
Okay. Good evening, Mr. Harris and board members. My name is Dawn Moore, and today I'm here speaking before you on behalf of the NAACP. We have two things going on right now. The first one is a multi-community organizational event, Splish Splash. Join us for the Back to School Pool Bash. Camp Yankatank donates the camp. We provide school supplies, and we have lunch on Saturday, August 10th, from 11 to 3 for all the children of the community. Last year, between children and parents, we had over 300 people there. We are also looking for volunteers. At this time, we have the Rotary Club, Calvary Baptist Church, the NAACP, Me Geek, which is Greg Grinchmeyer, and the Literary Union. The other event.
Before you move to the other event, what was the date of this event?
This is
The Pool Bash?
Saturday, August 10th, from 11 to 3 at Camp Yankatank. The kids come out and have a good time. The mobile library is going to be there. The fire department's going to be there. The rescue squad. The resource officers come. And then we have social services set up a table last year, and some other community programs set up tables for the parents to be informed about what's going on.
And what time does the event start and what time does it stop?
It starts at 11 a.m. and it's over around 3 p.m.
Thank you.
The other event that we will be having, you approved last month for Mr. Walker to come and open the courthouse for the bathrooms. Irene Morgan was arrested here across the street July 16th of 1944. That will be 80 years she was arrested, which is 10 years before Rosa Parks. But Irene Morgan never made the history books. Irene Morgan paved the way. We will be having, the NAACP will be hosting a reenactment of her arrest. Sheriff Bushy is participating. Bay Aging is going to provide the pearl. It's going to pass the courthouse, turn down this street, and pull up behind the courthouse so everybody can see what's going on for the arrest that Sheriff Bushy, the deputy, and Miss Cynthia Beverly will be playing out. And we have Irene Morgan's granddaughters will be here to sing. We have a couple other things going on, and we are just waiting on confirmation for a couple of special guests. But it will be here July 20th, starting at 11 a.m. It will be over by 12 p.m.
Okay.
You have any questions? We hope to see you there.
I don't have any. Anybody else have any questions? We appreciate you spearheading that effort, and thank you very much for doing that. I
The
think it's-
NAACP thanks you for allowing us to use the grounds.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
And
Glad
Mr.
to.
Chairman, I'll elaborate a little bit more under my report. I've got a couple
Okay.
of things I'll brief the board on about our use of the county properties.
Any other public comments? Seeing none, I'll close public comments. And we'll move to item number 4, constitutional officers, treasurer report only, and commissioner of revenue report only. Any questions? If not, we'll move right along. Agency and staff reports, Norris Bridge and VDOT, and Mr. McKnight.
And Mr. Chairman, if I may, kind of introduce Lee a little bit on this topic. We had written a letter at the board's request supporting, urging the upgrade and remodeling, replacement of the Norris Bridge. And I think what Lee is going to report to y'all is some of the outcome of that effect. They will need another letter of support supporting this initiative.
Yes. So, good afternoon, members of the board. As Mr. Walker kind of stated, the project is moving forward with the replacement of the Norris Bridge. As part of that, there was an opportunity for the department to apply for federal grant funding through the U.S. DOT discretionary grant system that would potentially pay up to 50% of the bridge replacement project, which is a substantial amount, and it would also accelerate that replacement project a little bit and get it to construction faster. Right now, it's projected, the replacement is projected to cost about $700 million. Again, that's a very early number, so 50% of that is a very substantial amount. U.S. DOT discretionary grants are very competitive, so community support is a vital part of a successful application. So we're really hopeful that Middlesex will support that grant. Just to give a little bit of an update of where we are currently, the project is to replace the Norris Bridge, and the location of that new bridge will be roughly 200 feet upstream of the current bridge, so west of where that current bridge is now. The Norris Bridge was opened in 1957. Obviously, it connects Lancaster and Middlesex counties over the Rappahannock River. Right now, it carries an average of 7,559 vehicles per day. The design year is 2050, and we're expecting that number to increase about 50% to 11,500 vehicles per day. And if you're wondering, the capacity of a 2-lane roadway at 45 miles per hour is 24,900 vehicles per day. So we're still substantially under that capacity number for the design year of 2050. Currently, $14.9 million has been invested in the preliminary engineering efforts. So we're actually already underway with a lot of the work for the replacement of the bridge. The geotechnical work has been completed. A lot of the environmental work is underway currently, and even some of the right-of-way work that needs to be done. So we're moving along. This grant will just help expedite a lot of that even more. The nearest alternative river crossing to the Norris Bridge is Route 360 in Tappahannock, the Downing Bridge. That detour is approximately 90 miles long, so it is a substantial detour, as you are well aware, making this bridge just a vital hub for those folks in Northern Neck and the Middle Peninsula. Currently, the Norris Bridge has narrow lanes, as everyone is well aware, and no appreciable shoulder. The new bridge design, I can't tell you exactly what those shoulders are going to look like yet because design work has not begun, but I can assure you that it will have wider lanes and shoulders, much wider than what's currently out there, to mitigate many of those safety and congestion issues that the bridge currently faces. So there will be shoulders and there will be wider lanes. Again, we're not currently in the design phase. We're progressing quickly to get to that point, and this grant will help us get there more quickly. So I really appreciate the county's support in this. This same letter has been, there's a stock letter that I have sent Mr. Walker. Same letter has been sent to the Northern Neck PDC as well for their concurrence. And if you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer any of those now.
Will the The bridge, would you think that it would be able to be expanded to 4 lanes once it's built, or?
So,
Enough room,
all options are currently on, they're evaluating all of that, whether it be how wide the shoulders need to be, pedestrian accommodations, 4 lanes. But I will say currently, based on the current ADT and the projected ADT, it's not anticipated that it'll be 4 lanes at this time.
Any chance of some of that leftover bridge being able to be a fishing pier for Middlesex?
All options are being evaluated currently. That is one of the options that is being evaluated.
2 questions. Excuse me. Any ballpark idea when we could be driving across that bridge? Is that 2050, is that the?
Oh, no, it'll be finished before 2050, but I really can't tell you because I don't know. It really depends on the funding and how fast that they're able to expedite that. They're working very aggressively to expedite it as soon as possible. And like I said, the work has already begun. It's just whether they can get the funding.
The other question is as far as the safety of the bridge that we have now, the Norris Bridge, is that something that we have to be, public has to be alarmed of or worried about as far as the safety of it?
No, and in fact, work will continue. Maintenance work will continue on the bridge up until the point that the new bridge is finished. So you will not see any maintenance work stop. It'll continue. There's already at least $10 million worth of maintenance projects planned in the next few years on the current bridge. So, no.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, Lee, I just see one thing that's pretty interesting. The last meeting that you were at was over Kilmarnock. Y'all gave an estimate of $600,000. I mean, $600 million.
Yep.
And now going up another $1 million. So I guess if y'all wait another month, the time we get this thing done, it ain't no telling
Yeah.
what it might be.
Yeah,
I
and
find that pretty interesting.
a lot of it does depend on how wide the shoulders are going to be. Obviously 4 lanes jacks that price even more up. So a lot of it depends on the actual design. But you're right, Mr. Williams. The longer we wait on this, the more
Make a
expensive it's
decision.
going to be.
What you gonna do?
Any other questions for Lee?
Just a-
And the old bridge will run until the new bridge is operational, is that correct?
That is correct. And then what will happen after that is still being evaluated. There's a lot of idiosyncrasies with that bridge, whether it were to remain in place or if it was demolished.
Well, and I too would, I'm not going to dispute what your information says, but I would think most people here in Lancaster would prefer a 4-lane as opposed to a 2-lane, and hope y'all will give due consideration to what that is based on the longevity of how long you're looking for that new bridge, to be in service.
Sure.
That would be my only comment,
Yes, sir.
that y'all consider that for sure. And I know the cost has a big play in that. So anyway,
Yes, sir.
it'd be nice if y'all decide on the 2-lane that extended lane on either side is enough that a car can completely pull off,
Yes.
to be able to not stifle the current traffic that's going in and out of that.
And I think that's a great point, and that's one of the main goals of the shoulders is however wide they are to be able to incorporate those vehicles so that if there's work being done on the bridge or there's an accident, that you have 2 lanes of traffic that are still able to get by.
I think also in y'all's discussions, you're looking at raising the guardrail
Yes, sir.
somewhat higher than where it is currently, correct?
That is correct. Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions? Thank you, Mr. McKnight, for coming in today. Appreciate seeing you.
Thank you all.
So, Mr. Chairman, if it's the board's desire to do so, we would need authorization to pen or sign the boilerplate letter, or maybe add some language asking that they seriously give any consideration to 4 lanes possible, given the length of time we're going to have the bridge. I'll just add that one of the reasons I asked Lee to join us here today is to talk a little bit about it, so the board understood the capacity issues. If I understood you right, Lee, until we really trip over 25,000 cars per day, a four-lane bridge is probably not in our future, and we're probably going to have the two-lane bridge.
Yes.
If I got it right.
Still, the 4 lanes are being considered and evaluated.
Okay.
It's just based on that 24,900 number.
Roger that. My recommendation would be authorize me to add some language to the boilerplate letters depicting the 4 lanes and approve it.
I assume we need a motion for that.
I so move that recommendation.
Mr. Jesse so moved on the motion,
Second it.
and second by Mr. Harris. Any other discussion? So we're going to empower Mr. Walker to go ahead and get that letter of support cleaned up and added to and sent out. Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Crittenden?
Yes.
Mr. Jesse?
Yes.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris?
Yes, motion's approved. All righty. Item 5B, social services, is only a report only in there. Any questions about the report? Discussion? If not, I will move on. Regular agenda items. Antioch Baptist Church proclamation. Mr. Walker, what do we need to do with that?
Approve it and proclaim it, I guess is short and sweet. We did get the request to issue a proclamation on that day, and I'm turning to that information in the packet as we speak. So what this proclamation does is pretty much recognize Antioch Baptist Church. This is going to be, I think, in parallel with the event that we're hosting on county properties on August the 3rd. My recommendation is that you approve the proclamation and designate this October 3rd, 2024 to be Antioch Baptist Church Appreciation Day. Now,
Motion would be in order for that.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion that we approve Antioch Baptist Church proclamation.
Wonderful. Second,
Second it.
any further discussion? I do have a question. Ms. Moore, would you come back to the, well, actually, I see Ms. White here. Either one of y'all, Ms. White, would you come forward, please? We've had a motion to approve the proclamation for Antioch Baptist Church. We've got a second. We're getting ready to vote on it. I'd just ask a question of you. You and I have traded some text regarding, is there currently an official agenda for the event?
We are in the process of developing the program, sir. It's just about finished. We had a meeting yesterday, and the Reverend Edlow will be the keynote speaker, and we have a number of speakers who are designated already. I'm out of breath, excuse
Okay.
me, from the steps.
No problem. I would just ask, as I indicated in my text, that you and I need to get together once that agenda is finalized.
Surely.
To see where the support for me and the Board of Supervisors may or may not be in that agenda.
Surely. No, we just, after you said you'd be joining us, we just had you down to give welcome on behalf of the county as the chair.
That'd be perfect.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay.
So y'all just approved your script you're going to read.
We'll chat some more about that, though. Any other questions about Antioch Baptist Church?
I have the language of the marker, if you all would like to hear that.
I would.
Okay. All right, take my glasses off to see. It reads as follows. Antioch Baptist Church. Antioch Baptist Church, the oldest black church in Middlesex County, was formed in 1866 by black members of white-led Clark's Neck, later Saluda Baptist Church. They acquired an acre of land just north of here in 1867 and added 2 more acres in 1881. Civil War soldiers are buried there, Antioch was one of 4 founding churches of the Southside Rappahannock Baptist Association and hosted its first meeting in 1877. An early black public school, Antioch School, was adjacent to the church. 2 Antioch pastors, the Reverend R.E. Berkeley and C.R. Tolles, were founders of Baptist-run Rappahannock Industrial Academy in 1902. Buildings there were named for them. 4 churches came out of Antioch, and that's the language. And just for the information, the 4 churches are Calvary, Emmanuel, Zion Baptist, Zion Branch rather, and Lebanon.
I have a question, just from a personal side. I know it's one of the oldest churches. How does it stack up with the oldest churches in the county?
Oh, well, Christ Church Parish is
Yes.
colonial times, so.
Yes.
And I'm not one who knows the whole history of religion in Middlesex County, but the Episcopal churches, I guess it's when the period of Baptist Enlightenment and all that, and when
Right.
Mr. Waller was jailed here in Saluda for preaching Baptist theology. So Baptists were certainly late on, but the Episcopal Church had been here. The Church of England,
Right.
Anglican Church, and then our Episcopal parishes. And of course, and I really shouldn't get into this, but Christ Church Parish was a part of Lancaster Christ Church Parish.
That's
But
correct.
that's not my area of expertise.
That's correct. Okay. I was just curious. I would think it ranks up in the top 5 of the oldest churches in Middlesex, but maybe that's something future we can look at.
Actually, something that we have that our young researcher, Tyler Radabar, has created is something very interesting that's a family tree of churches. And so Glebe Landing is the mother.
Okay.
And then there are these several churches, including Clark's Neck Saluda Baptist, that came out of Glebe Landing. So
Right.
Saluda Baptist, or Clark's Neck, becomes a daughter. And then Antioch is a granddaughter, and the great-granddaughters
Right.
are the 4 that I've mentioned. But it's just a little interesting way of looking at that, like that Tyler Radabar has created, just with the Baptist churches.
Yeah, great. Wonderful.
And
Well,
also, if you go in Deltaville, you can find out that Amberg Baptist Church, and I think the one that got blowed down of that. So if you do the history on that, you will find out that it's a lot of churches. Then if you go in King's Neck, even Calvary came out of Antioch, but if you go back in King Neck, when you weren't allowed to really assemble, there were churches.
That's right. Well,
You know, so
Zor
when
is-
we get back in there, it gets kind of crazy.
Zor is one of the daughter churches also out of Glebe Landing. That was the original. I invite all of you to pick up this copy of House and Home magazine, which is on, there's a wonderfully beautiful article on Antioch and the mark of dedication in the current issue.
yes, I've seen it. It is very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. White, for coming and giving us a little bit of a history and religious lesson this morning, or this afternoon. Appreciate you being here, and yeah, we look forward to supporting the Antioch Baptist Church.
Well, thank you, and we look forward to all of you joining us on August 3rd at noon.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am, for coming.
Thank you.
I'm sorry? Oh, yeah, we have a motion, do we not? We were, thank you. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenton,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion approved for the Antioch Baptist Church proclamation. All right. Mr. Walker, you want to handle item B under 6B?
It's my pleasure to handle item B. I don't think I've had many of these. We have a reintroduction to our new library director. She went away for a while, but we snatched her back, it appears. Everyone knows this person, Carrie Dos Santos, our new, let me say that 10 times, our new library director, who is back from her journey abroad and hopefully to stay. Really happy to have you back, Carrie.
Thank you, thank you. So, thank you all
Welcome.
for having me.
Welcome, Carrie.
Thank you, thank you. So, as Mr. Walker said, I am Carrie Dos Santos. I live here in Hartfield. I was actually the director of the library from 2018 to 2022. Then I briefly went over to Rappahannock Community College. And while I did enjoy myself there, I did realize that my heart is with public libraries, and the library begged me to come back. So I said, okay. So I'm also on the Middlesex Broadband Authority, and I'd like to thank you all for approving my reappointment to the authority. And really and truly, I want to thank all of you and the county staff for supporting the public library, and especially our recent addition, our mobile library. So just in case you all didn't know, we do have a regular schedule now for the mobile library. So every second and fourth week of the month, the mobile library visits Porttown Village in Urbana, the Hermitage Baptist in Churchview, Remlick Wesleyan in Remlick, and then St. Paul Baptist in Jamaica. And then we also visit the farmers markets in Urbana and Deltaville. So right now, we're kind of staying flexible with our schedule, just trying to see what works, what doesn't work, what time of day is best to visit, so on and so forth. And but the mobile library, it does have free Wi-Fi for everybody. We have books and DVDs for adults and children that are there to be checked out. And we can also print, we can scan, we can make copies. And we also do provide information from the health department and social services on it. In addition to the mobile library, right now our children's summer reading program is in full swing, and it is made possible through a grant from the River Counties Community Foundation and our many partnerships with the Middlesex YMCA, the Deltaville Maritime Museum, the Middlesex Kiwanis, and the town of Urbana. So we have several programs for adults also coming up, including an author talk by Larry Tuning on July 18th down at the Deltaville Branch Library. And I'd like to really invite all of you to come by the Urbana and the Deltaville Branch Libraries. Sign up for a library card if you don't already have one. And just come by, browse, see what we all have to offer you all. And finally, I have printed copies of our monthly newsletter for you in case you don't get it in your email, and I'll give this to Anne Marie. And but finally, just again, thank you for the opportunity to speak to you all, and I want to personally thank you for your support of the public library. You have any questions?
Any questions for Carrie?
No? Okay, thank you.
Well, community college loss, Middlesex County gain,
Yes.
correct? The library has really gone a long distance for improvement over the last few years, and I'm glad that the county has been part of that over time. It's one of the few things that my wife will comment on because she loves the library in Urbana. And her instruction to me is whatever you cut from the budget in Middlesex, make sure the library is not one of them.
Thank you.
And she normally doesn't chime in on county business. Occasionally she'll give her opinion, but she has enjoyed the library and what it offers, and thank you for your part in all of that as well. And thank you for coming and letting us see your face here today.
Sure, my pleasure.
All right. Have a great day.
Thanks.
Okay, everybody's favorite, citizens' appointments. Miss Anne Marie?
Good afternoon. You have 6 appointments today. 4 are reappointments. The top 4 you'll notice are reappointments, and 2 our new appointments. With no opposition right now, there's no conflicting requests to be appointed to boards. You can move to approve all appointments in one motion, or you can approve them individually.
And the two new ones are Ms. Moore and Mr. Deagle, is that correct?
That's right. And Mr. Deagle, he is new to the airport committee, that's correct, and Don Moore is for the Social Services Advisory Board.
On the one for the airport, that vacancy had evidently just been created, and I wasn't aware of it. Zero. I wasn't aware of nothing about it. So that's not giving anybody in Harmon Village District to apply for that. So that one, I don't want it to be recommended as being appointed right now because I didn't know anything about it, and I'm pretty sure a couple others didn't know nothing about it neither. So,
Well, there was a email that came out talking about, and actually, I'm going to turn it over to you to discuss why that appointment is vacant. Absolutely. Please.
Yeah, we promoted one of our airport attendants to airport manager. He has the experience, skills, and knowledge we feel necessary to help kind of put a guiding hand on the airport and the projects that are going on down there, as well as other things. And he currently serves on the airport committee. We talked it over with county council, and we figured you can't really be airport manager and supervise down there and be on the airport committee. So he voluntarily resigned from the airport committee to accept his new role as kind of lead airport attendant and airport manager. It's part of the reallocation plan that we had to better utilize resources here with the county and with the departure of Charlie, our former county engineer. But agreed, if there is any interest on the part of anyone in Harmony Village or really throughout the county, because I think they're at large, you can hold off on that. We had an individual that showed some interest and thought we would put his name on for consideration. But no worries if you want to hold on that one.
yes, I want to hold on it based on the resignation of the person we put in charge of July the 1st.
Right.
And what's the date? Day is the 9th.
Yeah, absolutely.
So
No
to
worries.
me, it looks like it's shaky to me. I just know, I'm sorry, I just gonna make it plain. You let everybody know and then you wait. I can understand that, we let someone go and the person, I got all of that.
Yeah.
But when you put these dates close together on me,
Right.
and by me not knowing, I ain't say the rest of it, I've seen it somewhere, it should have been brought up, give an opportunity that somebody else could put in for it.
Absolutely.
Now, I tell you, I also
And-
got a scenario about these kind of things, when you pull these kind of things on me.
Yeah.
I just don't like it, I'm gonna let you know right now, I just don't like stuff
Understand.
like that.
And we're in absolutely no rush. We just happen to have an individual that showed some interest. So that's completely understandable.
Right,
And
if we get somebody, we do submit it to the board. I mean,
Yeah.
that is, you've noticed the few times that we were even late, we try to put it in so that the board doesn't miss somebody who did submit an application.
Absolutely.
It is always fully within the board's rights to say, let's wait and get more. Certainly, so you are correct, not a worry.
And it may add a little bit of context to it. Anytime I have a citizen on the phone, whether they're complaining about something or interested in something and they show an interest, I try to recruit them to fill out one of those citizen interest forms, especially if we have new citizens that come to a meeting. We want more the merrier. I want to give you all as many choices as we can. And if you don't know the people, introduce you to them, especially if they're in your district and they're interested in things. So absolutely no worry at all. It would take several months to fill the position if we need to.
Thank you, Mr. Williams, for your comments on that, because I agree with you, too. I don't want to see anybody that possibly would have been interested, and nothing against Eric Deagle, but I think it ought to be transparent, and I think it ought to be open for anybody that may want to put in for that. So, any other discussion? If not, a motion would be in order to approve 1 through 5 and hold off on the airport committee at least till their next meeting, if that works for everybody. Right. So a motion would be in order for that, please.
So approved. Yeah, I'm sorry, so moved.
So moved by
Second.
Mr. Crittenden and second by Mr. Williams. Any further discussion? We're approving 1 through 5. Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved for the top 5, and number 6 item, airport, will be held until a further date. Thank you very much. Item number 7
Well,
is,
Mr. Chairman, if I could have a little discretion? Maybe.
yeah, you're using up that little
I know.
discretion quite a bit here.
I blame her for this one, because she kicked me on the
Okay,
table.
go
Said,
ahead.
"You're going to introduce Richard?"
ahead.
Yeah, it's probably as good a time as any. As I mentioned, Richard Lewis has been an airport attendant for the county and has really impressed both Heather and I with his degree of forethought and follow-through and energy and interest in the airport. And when we were looking at trying to do more with less, I'm going to use that, that may be our motto, we were looking at different ways we can reallocate resources, try to do things more efficiently and with less redundancy. I forgot what we were talking about one day, but the county attorney and I were talking about some issue we were having at the airport that seemed to be lingering, and she said, "Do you know Richard Lewis?" And I was like, "Well, yeah, I know Richard very well." "Well, he's on top of this." And I'm like, "Well, good." And then light bulb, we had a solution to one of our reallocation situations.
See what
So-
happens if you're responsive and on time, right?
Yeah, that's right. Now, if we have any issue with Richard, is that he's a bull in a china shop. When he wants a coffee pot, he wants this, and we've got like 12 emails, but he's getting stuff done. And boy, yeah, I'm going to kind of hold him and save him from himself sometimes on trying to do too much too fast. But I am very pleased to announce to the board, I did offer a promotion to Richard, and he has accepted, and he's going to be working with us and Mark Flynn as airport manager and helping out with some of the potential projects that are going on down at the airport and overall oversight and supervision of our airport attendants. And Richard's here today.
You told me I had big shoes to fill, Betty Muncie.
Well, you have a horrible, horrible future trying to fill our shoes, so don't even try.
You told me that's what.
Yeah.
That's my model. So.
And luckily for us, Betty likes Richard, so she'll probably teach him everything he needs to know, what he doesn't already know. So I'm very pleased to announce that, and I wanted to introduce him this month. Well, I was going to introduce him to you next month after we got his feet on the ground a little bit better, but he's here tonight. He's not going to be here next month. So Richard Lewis, everyone, and very happy to have him. He's a great part of the team already, and I think we're going to get him a coffee pot, but we got to talk to you about some of those other more priceless things. All right. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I got a comment.
Go ahead.
Richard himself, I met Richard about 4 years ago, and I always go by first impressions. And Richard was a guy, that kind of like, kind of got underneath my skin. That don't happen too much. And I ain't got nothing to say but something good for Richard, because you can come to him and he will discuss things with you. And if he sees something wrong, he'll tell you. He's a straightforward person. So, hey, I'm not in love with the guy, but I like the guy.
Every month, he's got the quote of the month, every month.
Welcome to the team.
Well, yes, I was going to say, welcome to the team. I'm a pretty quick study on people, too, and I've only seen you a few times and met you a few times, but I think you're the right guy for the job, and I think we're lucky to have you.
Well, the nice thing about this was my first job in high school, where I got full pay and they can work for somebody, would work for the county driver.
Oh, okay.
So now I'm bookending my career at the other end, working for the county.
Okay, well, wonderful. Well, thank you for being here today, and we look forward to what you bring to the table over time. Thank you very much. All right. Moving along to, under regular agenda items, D, budget supplement requests, annual fire department aide, Anne Marie Riccardi and Dave Lehman.
And
Page
Mr.
103.
Chairman, David Lehman is ill today, so I'm going to try to pitch it
This
for him
one's
as
mine.
much as I can.
No, Anne Marie's going to pitch it.
Okay.
Go ahead.
This is the annual Aid to Fire Departments grant. This is a grant we receive by its name, every year, we split the proceeds. As soon as we get it, we split it and send it to the 3 fire departments. It is important to note that this grant is designed to supplement and not supplant any other revenues provided from the county. This is from fire insurance coverage. It provides towns and cities funds with funds to pay for training, training centers, firefighting equipment, and protective clothing. Allocations are populations-based. This year, the year that just ended, was $45,623, which, as you see, we're splitting about $15,207 between each of the 3 departments. Next year's allocation, that is the year that starts July 1st, I'll be coming to you in a few months when I get those funds, and that will be 51, they've already determined what that amount will be. It'll be 51,931. And again, that gets, as soon as we get it, we turn around, request the board to send it to the fire departments. I'll ask is approval of this budget request.
Any further discussion? If not, motion, go ahead.
Just one question. I guess I probably should have asked Wayne this, but excuse my ignorance, but it seemed like don't we have 4 fire departments in the county? Deltaville, Hartfield, Waterview, and Urbana?
One is not eligible. One of those is not, let me go back to my list.
Well, and I think one of them gets their funding through the same program through the town.
Okay.
That's what it is. So that's why we get Upper, Hartfield, and Lower, and Urbana not.
It's not a bad question, because I asked that several years ago, too.
Yep, I remember that now.
Any further questions? If not, a motion would be in order.
I so move.
Motion by Mr. Jesse,
Second.
second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams.
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motions are carried. All right, Anne Marie, I think
Thank
you're
you.
still up.
Yes, this next one, and again, this is, I think, where Matt may choose to jump in. This is an emergency shelter grant that David Lehman obtained for the county. It is a grant to get a new generator at the elementary school which is used as an emergency shelter. This grant is being split with the government providing $84,500 and the county contributing $45,500 for a total amount of $130,000. Let's see, and that's for a generator to run the shelter in case of emergency. Let's see, what else do I know about this? The school started work, do you want to start on this, or you want me to?
Yeah, I mean, if you're ready to jump in.
Okay, I'm on a roll. The Middlesex Elementary School, as you know, serves as our primary emergency shelter for natural and man-made disasters. It currently has a 350-watt diesel full-power generator for emergency power. The generator is over 20 years old and required extensive repairs this spring to ensure it was ready for this hurricane season. Therefore, working with the school, a grant became available to replace the generator, and those are the numbers I just told you. However, the school was not eligible to apply for this grant. It had to go through the county because of the Virginia Department of Emergency Management Systems. Let's see, we were notified of the award on June 4th, and we brought it to the board as soon as we were aware of it. And we need to accept the grant if we wish to have it. If accepted by the Board of Supervisors, the school will manage both the procurement process and oversee installation, since it is at their school. And that's all I have. Questions, comments?
Questions?
David took his time to email me on this, and I wholeheartedly support. We have to have good equipment to be able to run our shelters, no doubt about that. But this is an important piece of equipment. This is mission essential to the county to be able to survive. And we're, 9 days into our new budget? And and this is looking at the county, we're going to have to appropriate, $40-some thousand to go along with this grant? Roughly?
Yes, the county has, in our budget, we included a grant match reserve for
For this?
opportunities like this.
For this?
Not for this one in particular, for
It's kind of
opportunities like
holistic
this.
for anything the PDC comes up with, and the PDC's grant administrator, Clara, is working on several other grants with the federal government that we'll talk about one later. But yeah, we have a reserve set aside for grant matches.
What was that total we had set aside?
500,000,
500,000.
I believe it was, yes, sir.
Okay. It would have been nicer, though, if we could have had it in the budget, being how it's such a critical piece of equipment, and have a little bit more foresight that it's breaking down, that it's not operating properly. And I also question the thing of 36 weeks before we can get the equipment. Has it been talked with multiple providers, and they all say 36 weeks? That's possible, but it just seems like the county is saying, okay, we got some grant money, put up some more money, and we'll let the schools handle it. You know, I think the school does a good job is what they do, but I don't know handling our emergency shelter, critical piece of equipment, is their best forte either.
Yes, sir, and I agree 100% with that assessment. I think it's the intention of David Lehman to be very close on this project, because it kind of converts from being an elementary school and an emergency to our main shelter. So I think we're going to be doing some hand-holding on this one, David Lehman and myself, to a lesser extent myself, mostly David. And it is a substantial piece of equipment. It's a large generator. It does not surprise me with the lead times. I think I won't get into a broader philosophical discussion on it, but I think it's one of the reasons why you're seeing a lot more onshoring of this type of manufacturing, because the lead times have gotten so extreme. One of the reasons the Cook's Corner sewer system took so long to get implemented and fully operational was that they were waiting on a generator.
Well, another question that I had was, there's another component to when you have emergency generator. It's called the transfer switch. You have the building, you have a generator in between that to link the two together. It's called a transfer switch. I wasn't able to get an answer if that was included. So if you have a brand-new generator and a 20-some-year-old transfer switch, and the transfer switch fails, well, you know where you are.
Right.
You're in the dark.
We'll see if we can get with the operations director with schools and get an answer for that. And it could be part of the procurement process if it's not included. It's not too late for that. Make sure it's included.
Okay, thank you.
In fact, what I'll do is I'll ask, I think it's Mr. Harris with the schools.
Yes,
Yeah,
Dustin.
Mr. Harris. We got a lot of Mr. Harris. I'll know him by his first name. I'll ask Mr. Harris, when they get the procurement developed, they give us a copy. And we take a look at it, we make sure all that's nailed down.
And will this be sole sourced, or will this be?
It'd be a procured item, so they'll put it out for bid.
Great.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Did we not do some maintenance on that generator last year?
Of the school's generator?
yeah.
I want to think we did maintenance on the middle school's generator.
Okay.
But, I mean, honestly, I couldn't tell you right now. I
I
can
know
find
we
out.
did some maintenance. I'm not sure which generator it
Well,
was.
and they kind of discovered they had larger issues when they were doing, I guess, some maintenance to this one, and that's what led the thought to apply for this grant. And I mentioned briefly earlier that we're working with Clara at the PDC on other grants where they had to have, I think, 10 different schools go in together on this federal grant for something very similar. So we're always trying to find grant monies to handle some of these maintenance issues that we either see on the horizon or we have at our feet currently, waiting to hear back on that federal grant. It may be more of a budget earmark that will come into play October 1st when the federal fiscal year starts.
We should have some type of program in place that assesses our critical equipment on a biannual basis, semi-annual, however we decide to do it, but we should have something in place that does that. And I'm not sure we do at this point.
Working on, we do have a list going right now. That's what I was working on this morning. So it's not done, but you're not wrong.
And one of the things we're struggling with right now is HVAC units, heat
Right.
pumps in particular. I think Dwayne said he had 5 down today. And,
Yep.
yeah, we really do need to kind of age these
Age 'em.
heat pumps, go through our inventory and see what's up for replacement and build that into a budget. We have a capital budget for car replacement for the same very reasons. We could have the same for HVAC and generation and different things like that. So duly noted.
Any further questions for Ms. Riccardi or Mr. Walker? If not, not sure what your pleasure is, but a motion would be in order to approve the emergency shelter grant for the work on the generator.
When it comes down, let me ask one more question. When it comes down to the actual costs that we get when we go out for bids, If it's higher, is there any way we can reapply for a grant, or is this a one-shot deal and it's over with no matter what?
You know, I don't know. I'll find out, though. And when the schools get the results of their procurement, I'll make sure that either the superintendent or myself reports back to the board to let you know the outcomes.
And just so everyone knows, I did ask for evaluation of the old unit to see what it would be worth for us when we surplus it, so that would come back in to help offset the 40-some thousand dollars they're looking at for us to approve tonight.
And I heard about that, and you know, it's funny, you and I think alike. That should scare you, Bill, because I was thinking if it's in reasonably good shape, could we trailer mount it and use it longer? Meaning move it around. I mean, if it's usable. If it's not, 20 years on a generator, yeah, but if it's usable for another 20, I hate to get rid of it if we can salvage it.
We could talk.
Yeah,
Okay,
all right.
so that lends me to say that perhaps we'd be better served to get the information that we're lacking before we approve the grant. And is that a time-sensitive thing?
Yes, this is time sensitive. According to the information provided, we have 30 days to accept this grant.
And I can explain why that is. That's not an attempt to make the board rush or feel rushed on it. It's just if the board doesn't intend to use the money, they probably have people that were almost approved waiting for that money. We were approved over them, and they're probably looking to, if we don't want to use it, get it to other folks.
Okay,
And
30 days.
Apologize for the short notice, but
No
we
problem.
found out when we found out.
30 days notice from what date?
Interestingly, per the grant agreement, we have 30 days to accept the grant. Looks like it's right around June 4th, which means we've expired it, but
I do believe it was extended so we can make this meeting, the 30 days.
Okay, what's your pleasure?
I'll make a motion to approve the budget supplement request FY 2025-1.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse,
A second.
and second by Mr. Crittenden. Any further discussion? If not, roll call would be in order.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved for the grant. All right, moving right along. Anne Marie, you're still on the seat for opioid grant proposal F.
opioids, I can't even say the word now, opioid settlement funds. As you know, the Middlesex County has been the recipient of multiple rounds of opioid settlement funds. These funds have extremely restricted uses, and it's been a struggle to try to find the right uses for them. However, I reached out to the school, and within about 3 months of me reaching out to the school, they came up with a new set of programs designed specifically for their schools that addresses the allowable prevention portion of the opioid settlement. As you can see on page 108 of your package, and I'll pull it up, they're looking for approximately exactly 15,530 of our opioid settlement funds to do some really interesting awareness and prevention programs. So, and this includes bringing a speaker, having some, having some special classes, as well as, I think they've got T-shirts too that says, I don't support drugs or whatever. So they're doing a media campaign, and that's how they're doing this. This is certainly an approved use, and we recommend approval of appropriating $15,530 of the opioid funds for this program.
What's the amount of the funds that would be left over?
I have, excuse me, I've got about $60,000 that I've received so far. We receive money regularly. Let me rephrase that. We receive money irregularly. But I've received $35,000 last year, about $30,000 this year. And I'm expecting, I think you've got another grant coming, so we'll be probably getting more than $30,000 next year. So to answer your question, I'll still have about $40,000 left after this.
Any other questions? A motion would be in order.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the grant, or this money be dispersed for this particular purpose.
In the amount of $15,000, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you, sir. Looking for a second?
Second it.
Second by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion? Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved.
Thank you.
All righty, looks like we're moving right along here. We just did F, opioid grant proposal. How about opioid resolution? Is that the one we need to vote on? Okay. So the last motion really was on R 2024-006. Do we need to do another motion, or?
Yes, sir. So the last thing you voted on was to approve budget supplement request form FY 2025-2. And so what's before you, and I'm going to let Anne Marie, if she has anything she'd like to add to, we're tag teaming. So get ready, I'm going to tag her in a minute. Essentially what this is as the board will recall, there is a large national opioid class action lawsuit. The Commonwealth of Virginia is now participating in that. And as numerous companies are going through bankrupt settlements, what they're doing is part of those conditions to get these companies to settle is that they say something like, we'll try and get all the defendants, which would be Commonwealth of Virginia and other states, to agree to your settlement. And so that they would stop then individual separate suits. And so this resolution is another one of those that the Attorney General's office reached out to Anne Marie and I, we're the contact people, to say, we're trying to get all the localities to adopt the resolution so that we can accept this settlement with the latest company, and then we'll start dispersing the money. As the board will recall, this has been going on for a couple of years. Some localities hired Coffin and Knowles and other law firms to represent them individually. They had they were able to prove that their costs were quite substantial from the opioid crisis. It was, at that time, I'd counseled the board, I think it would be better if I have the option of participating without doing anything. That's what I did. I signed up for the settlement, and then the state got on board. And once the state got on board, really, we were able to piggyback on that. So that's a long-winded way of saying this is another company going through bankruptcy. It is our recommendation that you adopt the resolution, so that authorizes the Attorney General to sign off on the settlement, and we get a larger percentage of the monies. I'll answer any questions you may have. And Anne Marie, is there anything I missed?
No, I just wanted to add that we already have a similar agreements, if you will, with CVS, Walgreens, and, is it Walmart? Yeah, it's Walmart. So these are something that will continue as these settlements by the state, by the Commonwealth continue.
Any other discussion? Based on the recommendation of the county attorney and Anne Marie Riccardi, it'd be in order for a motion to be made.
I'll make a motion that we approve the resolution R 2024-006.
Correct, thank you. Motion by Mr. Jesse, second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion? If not, roll call, please.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion's approved. Okay, moving right along, next item, and just bear with me a second, I'm looking at two different things. AMR Resources International, Mr. Bob Hunley,
Mr. Chairman,
thanks for being here today, sir.
Thank
The
you.
reason that sounds odd is because we're used to calling them Resource International, but they did rename themselves, so we've got to get accustomed to the new name. I spoke to Bob and I asked him to come in because it's kind of time for his quarterly update on how things are going at the landfill. So, Bob, welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Walker and Mr. Chair, members of the board, county staff. I am Bob Hunley with Arm Group Resource, and did want to give you a brief update on things. I was last here in March and spoke to you on how things were progressing. We had some good news on landfill gas. We had some continuation of groundwater monitoring information, but we did have a meeting with Mr. Beam and the members of the Piedmont Regional Office of DEQ back in April, and that yielded some good information regarding groundwater monitoring, which I wanted to share with you today. If we can go to the next slide. And the next one, yeah. So that is the familiar slide that you may recall seeing before. It's trying to present to you the general flow of groundwater moving across the landfill property, starting at the top of the page and moving towards the bottom to the tributary of Dragon Run at the very bottom there. So water is generally flowing toward the creek across the property. And so as we are monitoring groundwater in the perimeter monitoring wells, and as we locate or determine what is in those wells, we would expect that water to flow in that direction. What we have shown DEQ in the past is that the box there, the rectangular red box at the bottom right-hand side of the page, is the last location of groundwater issues that we have, the area that needs to be remediated the most.
Bob,
yes,
if I
sir.
may interrupt you, Emery, can you zoom in a little bit on that so maybe the public can see that graphic? I don't know.
Bottom right-hand.
Probably
bottom
arrow
right,
at the bottom.
There you go. There you
There it
go.
is. Perfect. Thank you.
So yeah, the bottom right-hand corner, red rectangle is our monitoring well closest to the body of water there that the beavers dam up frequently. And so we have vinyl chloride that shows up in that well. Vinyl chloride is a compound that is one of the last pieces of groundwater contamination to break down over time. And so the good news is that we're down to vinyl chloride. The bad news is it's still over the groundwater protection standard for vinyl chloride. So if we can go back to that last page there. So what we are proposing to do, and DEQ has advocated that we pursue this as well, is a injection of what is referred to as an oxidation compound. And that oxidation compound expedites the degradation of vinyl chloride over time. And so our proposed remedy to accelerate the degradation of vinyl chloride in that area would be to inject this oxidizing compound by way of a drill rig that would install multiple points of injection just above that particular monitoring well. There is we did work with the county several years ago to get an access way to improve that particular monitoring well. So there is a way to get a drill rig back there. But we would install those injection points just above that particular monitoring well. It would create basically a filtering effect of the contaminants that are moving toward that particular monitoring well. And our hope is that after installing that injection of the oxidizing agent, that would accelerate the degradation of vinyl chloride at that point, at which time we would be able to petition to end groundwater monitoring at the landfill. The other alternatives that we looked at would require air sparging, something of that nature, which would require having electricity down there, so you'd have the expense of running electricity all the way down there. we believe this is probably the quickest and the most cost-effective way. Our budget proposal is somewhere between 10 and 20,000 to do this work. I'll get you a definite number on that in the next few days, but we believe that will accelerate the groundwater monitoring termination at the site. And I'd be happy to, I know there's other pieces of this, but I'd be happy to answer any questions related to this now.
So I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The injection to help alleviate the chloride is, and I won't hold you to it, but this is the last portion of what we need to have done
Yes, sir.
to be able to close
The monitoring.
the monitoring.
Yes, sir.
And what's your experience been for when you do the injections to how long
Right.
it clears it, if that makes sense? How
Sure.
long?
No, that's a
before-
great question. And it varies dependent on the levels that you're experiencing. And what we have seen and what we'll see on the next slide is the level of vinyl chloride in this particular area has kind of been all over the place.
Right.
And some quarters or some 6-month periods it'll be down, some 6-month periods it'll be spiking. And that's typically what you see in an area that is degrading to vinyl chloride, because it's, as things hit that particular well sample, if it's breaking down more, then the vinyl chloride concentration is going to go up. So I would say that based on the levels that we're seeing here, we would expect to see a difference being made within a year of putting in that injection material. We would expect to see a definite change. I mentioned injecting points above the monitoring well. We would also put the material in the monitoring well itself, as well as in the upgradient well above it, which is, I believe that's MW7. So we would put it in those two wells as well, which would eventually work its way down toward the well that we're talking about. So I would say we would definitely see an improvement within a year, would be my expectation, based on our current levels. And then I think if you go to the next screen, Anne-Marie, the concentration of vinyl chloride is shown there. And as you can see, it has jumped around a lot. The solid line at the bottom, excuse me, is the GPS, or groundwater protection standard, for vinyl chloride. And the trend line you see is going up based on the last several sampling pieces that we've shown. I think the most recent sampling that we did earlier this year did show a point below that trend line. So that trend line is probably more like neutral by now, if you added in the most recent sampling that we had.
So Bob, can I ask a quick question?
Yes, sir.
I understand, okay, so the solid red line at 2
Yes, sir.
is the limits.
Right.
And the linear dotted line is kind of a baseline trajectory.
That's the
given all
trend
of-
that we've had based
All
on most recent sampling.
And you think within a year, you'll see a trend reverse?
Right.
With the ejection well?
We would expect to see a neutralization of that trend, or even a downward trend by then.
How long do you think we would need to demonstrate that trend before DEQ would let us off groundwater monitoring? Or would they at all until we get below that
I
limit?
believe they're going to require that you get below 2.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right. I used to think that DEQ always wanted to keep us under some kind of monitoring because people's jobs depended on it in Richmond. But now I think honestly, they want to try to help us get out from under these groundwater monitoring requirements if the environment's protected and if it's safe to do so. Based on that and some previous conversations I've had with Bob, I think it's something the county ought to try. It's not that expensive. You know, we'll see a trend develop in the next year, at least get us a trajectory to better get answer to, I think, all of your questions. When are we going to have to stop doing this?
Right.
So, anyway, just wanted to chime in and say that. It was a
Yes,
good time.
Mr. Chair, yeah, I would like to say,
Yes, sir.
what other landfill have you done this at? And, because, I'm sitting here
Sure.
thinking, when you go down there and if you're injecting in the ground, And then do you have to boil? If you
Yes,
boil,
sir.
you're gonna be stirring up some stuff, but,
Right.
and that vinyl chloride, so you may, I'm just wondering, how do I know you can't guarantee that it's gonna
Right.
get that result.
Right,
but-
so the drill rig would come out and drill fairly small boreholes, and we would probably, we'll get the recommendation from the vendor, but my guess is it'll be 3 to 5 boreholes up gradient of the well to basically create a screen of the material that would fan out as it resides in the soil. And we have done that at a landfill up in Stafford and had very good results there, pretty quick results at that facility. So I would not expect it, I would expect you to see results pretty quickly on something like this, and it's a pretty common remediation technique. It's been done quite a bit throughout the state, so the fact that DEQ is advocating for it is a good thing because they're not going to stand in the way as far as putting that remediation option on the table.
This report that we were just looking at, actually, it's on the screen, I think. Yep.
Yes, sir.
How come there's no data on there for 23 or 24?
I believe that's just the scale of the snapshot. The line does go further than 22. I think the label just didn't show up on the PowerPoint slide. But yes, sir, there's data from 23 and 24, which should be reflected. And I will be happy to replace that slide and get that updated slide to you in the next day.
I would like to see the updated
Absolutely.
slide, absolutely.
Absolutely.
And Bob, this kind of piggybacks a little bit on what Mr. Jesse's question was. This is a method that DEQ is comfortable with and would
Yes.
have no problem approving.
Yes.
Are there any approvals needed from them before we implement it, or is it just a plan we put in front of them?
It's a
and they-
plan you put in front of them and they say yay or nay.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
So we could go to the next slide, or, Mr.
Wait a minute, let's don't go
Yes, sir.
leave that slide yet. The trend in 2021, which it significantly, or somewhere thereabouts, significantly went down
Right.
from 2019 to, I'm guessing, maybe early part of 21, looking at the slide and guessing where that time frame flows in. But then it's a steady increase to, looks like maybe somewhere around 12, 21, 22.
Mhm.
Could you comment on that?
Well,
It's
as-
just odd that
Right.
it's going down significantly.
Right.
And all of a sudden, it significantly is going up.
Sure. And as I was mentioning before, volatile organic compounds, whether they be, this particular area seems to have had an effect or had a record of 1,1-DCA, if you remember that particular compound that I've mentioned before. 1,1-DCA breaks down to vinyl chloride.
Okay?
So over time, if you have 1,1-DCA in various pockets that's degrading over time, if you have a particular area of 1,1-DCA work its way towards this particular well, NES2R, then you could expect to see spikes as it degrades into vinyl chloride. So like I said before, the good news is you've got vinyl chloride because that tells you you're at the end of your degradation curve of materials that are degrading. The bad news is it's above the groundwater protection standard. So, but yes, in other areas, we have seen multiple compounds, not just vinyl chloride. The fact that we just have vinyl chloride over groundwater protection standards here is a good thing because that's the last element to degrade. Right. Means we're getting to the end. And like-
Well, it won't get there quick enough for some of us.
Yes, sir. I
Just so
completely
you know.
understand. I completely understand. And that precisely is the reason that we were recommending pursuing this acceleration piece. Because otherwise, the option is to keep monitoring, and we know that that's not the county's desire.
But we don't have a time issue on whether we approve that today or at our next meeting, correct?
Correct.
Okay. At which time we'll have a better on this graph.
You'll have a better graph and
of
you'll have a better
23
cost
and
estimate.
24, and we can readdress that at
Absolutely.
at a later date. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Wonderful. Any other questions? Thank
Do-
you, sir.
Do have a little bit more on there as far as the landfill
Oh, well, show
gas.
us a little bit more.
Sure.
We're open for that.
Sure. With respect to and so that basically talks about the various options that we considered and the fact that the injection was the least costly and the most cost-effective. And then that's just some specific information about the material that will be injected and the fact that your particular area is ideal for that particular compound. And then we go into the gas. Most of this you've seen before from my presentation in March, but again, just to show you the gas progress continues. We continue to get no landfill gas readings in any of the perimeter wells where we installed the vents, and if you can go to the next one. I think you remember that particular slide where we looked at the underlying conditions of the landfill across that particular profile line, determined that the extraction system was probably not deep enough to get the gas that was probably moving under the extraction wells and out to the perimeter probes. And so then, if you go to the next slide, we installed these vent wells back in March of last year. And in the next slide, we put in 2 in front of probe number 4 and 2 in front of probe number 3. And so far, everything has been 0 at each of those probes, 3 and 4, since we put these vent wells in. So the good news is there, we have already submitted to DEQ, requested to start an observation period, which will begin to get us out of landfill gas monitoring. So we'll be observing the site without having the gas system running to make sure that there is no gas migration to the probes. And as long as that works, then we can be in a 3-year period of quarterly sampling. And as long as that goes through, then we can get out of landfill gas sampling completely. So that's the landfill gas piece. That hasn't changed since March. I just wanted to remind you of it.
Right, thank you.
Sure.
Questions?
What kind of cost is associated with the ISCO type of?
Like I said earlier, I think it's going to be somewhere between 10 and 20,000. That's my estimate. The majority of the cost is getting the drill rig on site and the drill rig work. The cost of the compound, I believe, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 2,000.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
It'd be very helpful when you come back to have
Of everything.
something closer on what the total cost
Absolutely.
would be to us. I mean, and I respect your guess
Yes, sir.
of what that is, but the closer we can get to something that, and, we all know that can change a little bit too, but
Absolutely.
if we can narrow the parameter down somewhat, at least that we know where we are, what we're talking about,
Absolutely.
would be wonderful.
I'll have that next month.
Thank you, sir. Any other questions? Thank you
Yes,
for
I got
coming
one
in.
more question, too.
Oh, go ahead.
The landfill that you were talking about up in
Stafford.
Were you able to close it by then? Or are you still in the process of it?
That landfill is fairly large, so they've got a new area in addition to an old area. The old area I would say would be more comparable to the area that you all have. That area that they had dates back to the 60s, 50s, somewhere in that time frame, so similar to what y'all have. I believe that portion of their landfill, they have been able to stop groundwater monitoring, but the new side, where they're still active, obviously, they have to keep going.
Okay.
And we were successful in getting another county completely out of groundwater monitoring, doing something similar. They didn't have to go through the injection piece, but they were able to get out of groundwater monitoring by just showing that they had downward trends on all their GPS readings.
Wonderful. Thank you, sir, for coming today. Appreciate your information. All right. Okay, on my revised sheet, we've added, and I know it doesn't match up with A, B, C, and D, but on my copy, it's item H, Buddy Park, and Ms. Riccardi, you're back on the hot seat, please.
Thank you. As you know, Middlesex County created a public park area at Cook's Corner in Saluda, which currently includes a basketball pickleball court as well as a skate park. The next area of the park is a children's playground, which was budgeted at $250,000 last year. Its funding came originally from a $69,347 grant from Christina Thelma Taylor in honor of her late son, Buddy, Horace Lee Taylor Jr., with the request that a playground be constructed and it be inclusive for special needs. Subsequently, the Kiwanis applied for a grant from the River Communities Foundation in the amount of $50,000, and ARPA, using our ARPA funds, the ARPA committee committed $55,000 for a total contribution therein of $174,347 of that $250,000. So, practically 2/3 of that funding was fully funded by outside sources. The project couldn't be started last fiscal year. As you know, you mentioned it, we're nine days into the new fiscal year, and we did carry the money forward into this fiscal year. We knew we wouldn't be able to start it last year because we couldn't start the project while the basketball courts were being constructed. However, using last year's budget, sometime summer of last year, county staff contacted 4 different park designers who were approved vendors on cooperative purchasing agreements. And we said, design us a park for $250,000 that's relevant to our community and, of course, inclusive. At the time, we also investigated incorporating water features because a lot of us wanted a water park. That put it out of our price range. Every vendor we talked to said, we can't do that. That adds $750,000 and you'll get a splash pad. So that part got cut out. Two of the designers throughout this process, really didn't understand the project. They didn't understand that we were looking for something unique to Middlesex. So we eventually tabled their submissions. The 2 options you see today that you'll see in your package, and I can bring them up in a minute, were both reviewed and approved by the Recreation Committee while favoring the Max Play Fit project over the Bliss project. I do want to note while I'm talking about it that Karen Reed, the Parks and Recreation Director, and members of her committee, who I think I've got Davelyn Gresham and it looks like Zee Brewington, and I think that's all that I've got here of the committee, but they did want to come because this has been important to them as well. Greg Chambers, he's the one who got us the Kiwanis grant, and he also wanted to be here, but apparently he was unable to make it. So he texted me earlier. Anyway, I digressed. While both of the designers that we had contacted came originally right at the one was at $275,000, but the other one was right at $250,000. There was an afterthought request by the Parks and Recreation Committee and the Kiwanis to change the base material from the blown-in rubber mulch material to something called poured in place. Poured in place is a smooth, 4-inch soft with a rubber over top of it. That's a better look, easier to maintain, and apparently safer for children. It's cleaner, low maintenance, and it's got really better aesthetics. This unfortunately increased the price by about $60,000 or $70,000. It's an option. Both options that I'll be discussing with you in a minute have negotiable components that can bring the price up or down, but we've reached a point in getting these vendors that it's appropriate now to negotiate with just one of the 2 vendors because of the work they're putting in. At this point, they're going to be actually producing a better product, something that we can bring forth to the board and say, please approve this as a contract. So we want to have the one that has the components or the style most desired by the board. Before I started this project, I want to give you a little bit of background. I reached out to Newport News. Newport News has some pretty robust playgrounds at the time. And they said this is how you do it. You reach out to the vendors and you say, I've got this amount of money, and you pick the best one and you negotiate with them. So I actually got my information from a bigger Parks and Recreation department because we hadn't done this before. So, anyway, that's how this came to be. And let me give you two designs. Anyway, they're in your, let me just, Bliss, whose product does not include the full poured-in-place base. Their product was $307,503, but they incorporated a blue crab, an anchor climber, slides, and swing sets. Their base is a combination, as I said, of the engineered wood fiber, that's the mulch, if you will, and they've got beneath the equipment, and then they've got a poured-in-place pathway. For that makes the poured-in-place pathways also more accessible for children who may have difficulty walking. So again, Max Play Fit is the designer of what they've dubbed the Chesapeake Bay Plan. Their playground includes a child-sized crab boat with a slide, a fish shack, a swing set, a crab climber, and educational panels. Their option includes a full poured-in-place, which is where I got my $70,000 from. Again, I wanted to notice that we've got support in the audience to support this project. So let me jump over to the 28. Let's see if I can pull up some of these so that y'all can see what we're talking about here. The first one, you can see this one is from Bliss. And they've got this, the colors, by the way, in any of these can be changed. So I do have a color spectrum, but right now we're just putting it as, this is the color that they provided. It's got a little climbing rope. What? Anyway, it's got a slide here, a climbing area. And you can, again, this is just multiple pictures of the same thing. And this is the overall layout that shows you this. This is a very fun thing that kids apparently like to climb on, which is to go from here and they jump on the chest to the barrel, to the crate, to the bag. Let's keep on going. They can climb up here to this, what do you call those? Crow's nest. Somebody said that. Somebody knew that.
Is that the material you were referring to?
The poured in place down here. And none of, right. And this has got this is a little bit designed for a little bit older children. If I go down to the next one, I love the crab. We love the crabs, and there's the walkways again, that again the younger children can play on. The next one, and this is the one going to be by Superior, is the $316,000 because, as you can see, the rubber poured in place is $78,000, practically. This is the one that had the little boat, the fish shack, which they can walk up the stairs. There's also a accessible route through here for children who have challenges walking. They each have little plastic slides, a crab, little walking things here. There's also, let's see what else I got. There's going to be a swing set on the side. We talked to them. There's the overview of the boat you can see how it's accessible for the challenged children, which is as a request. This one included the educational panels. There's 4 educational panels included in this. And if you want more information about that, I actually have, let me see if I can. The educational panels are up to our choice, but it might include something like the biology of a flower, the map of the continent, types of clouds, and the solar system. So those would be little panels on the playground.
Was that only on this contractor? Not
Yes.
everybody had that,
Right,
correct?
that is correct. That's unique to this plan, to what they called the Chesapeake Bay Plan. We asked them also to consider contributing something that I wanted. It's a little spring where you sit on a fish and you go like this, but again, these designs, I kind of had to stop with our requests until I get permission from the board to proceed with negotiations. Let's see. Anyway, there's the swing sets. And you'll notice the swing set happens to be green. The colors, as I said, is up to us. They have all these color options available. For example, the basketball court right next to it is blue and green, so maybe you'd want blue and green. So anyway, I think those are the pictures that I have for you. Yeah, that's up to the next one. So at this time, what I'm asking for is it's kind of hard, because what I'm asking for is the adopted budget for this project is $250,000. And that's carried forward from last year. And you saw most of it, $175,000, came from other sources. The presented options do have negotiable components. For example, if you wanted an extra swing, more educational panels. For example, I found a really cool one that did sign language. I thought that could be a single freestanding, again, because it's good, it is good to get interaction via these interactive educational panels. But as I said, it's appropriate now for staff to pick a vendor, begin a final contract, selecting the one that has the most components or style desired by the board. The extra cost, if, as requested, if we wanted to do the PIP-based, could be appropriated from the basketball pickleball courts. As you recall, we are almost finished with the basketball pickleball courts. The only thing I have left to pay them in this fiscal year is going to be the reserve. We held back 5% before we finished it, just to make sure that it was complete. So we budgeted $165,000 for the basketball pickleball courts. So we could appropriate the additional amount needed for the poured in place from that if the board so desired. So again, I'm asking the board to authorize staff to negotiate a contract with the chosen vendor, reminding them that the Recreation Committee preferred Max Play Fit, which was the second one, over the first one. Although they were both amazing, I could certainly happily be with both. I think we all could. And give me a not-to-exceed price. The not-to-exceed price that I am asking for would probably be about $320,000. You could give me more if you wanted, but $320,000 would enable me to negotiate with Superior Max Fit Play, getting the complete PIP, as well as perhaps either adding in those springy things or just an educational panel as you wished. So then what I would do is begin negotiations and come up with a final contract, telling us how they would do it, when they could do it, and then we'd get it into the work product. And that would be at your next board meeting. Again, at this time, you're not committing to anything except for agreeing to have me negotiate with one of the two vendors and giving me a limit. And what I'm asking for specifically is higher than the $250,000 because of the poured in place request by the committees. I think I better stop.
Discussion and questions?
There was an engineering fee?
No, there's no engineering fee.
Okay, so when we're talking about the $250,000, $300,000, there's no other cost for
That is correct. They do it.
Did you,
Although I may have to, I don't know if I have to level the grounds. One of these had an opportunity that I had to level the ground more. So that may be a requirement.
did you say that the option number 2, the one with the full base, was easier to maintain? Was that one of the things?
That is what everybody said, and you don't have to replace it like you do the mulch needs to be repaired or replaced at least annually. And people get concerned about having stuff in it.
What is the life expectancy of the poured in place?
7 years? I have to double check. I think it's 7 years. I'm sorry, I did have that, and now I forget.
So I take it the UV rays will eat it up in 7 years, is basically what they're saying?
I'm trying to figure out where I saved it. Talk about how cool this is. This is fun. This is amazing. No, seriously, this is an amazing product. Either one. I don't have it
say
here.
this, as someone who uses playgrounds
What do you think it may
frequently
be,
with a
roughly
toddler,
7
Yes, 7
poured
years.
in place is
And
very
it's 70
nice.
And it's $70,000 to install it. So basically, it's $10,000 a year maintenance for that.
You could think of it like that, or you could,
We don't know how many years it goes yet.
yeah, let me, if y'all want to keep talking about other things.
Well, and Reggie, you may be able to answer this, because I know you and the committee have worked very hard on this, and hat tip to all of you, because you came up, or you narrowed it down to do beautiful designs. Will this playground be covered by one of those, like, not tarps, but, you know, one of those coverings, sunshades, yeah? Like, will they have one of those, like, sunshades like we saw in the other picture?
No,
Could it?
um,
Because that could add useful life and keep the UV rays off of it, at least have it out in the summer. Make it much cooler, too.
Okay, again, that's something I'd have to negotiate with the seller.
Right.
And usually they could do that.
Because having witnessed
10
parks
years.
in use, those sunscreens or sunshades, whatever they're called, I don't know. I wish they had them when I was a kid, because you had to throw water on the slide before you went down there. You regretted it.
Ooh, and-
Y'all know what I'm talking about. Generation X knows. It just increases the usability of the park, having that sunshade on it.
Anyway, and I'm sorry, it was 10 years? And they said, and if it's cared for even better, that would be 12 to 15 years. It can be treated with a coating to renew its wear. New top layers can be poured onto it. So it doesn't have to be replaced with the full $70,000. You just basically fill in the holes and re-pour it. And spot repairs can be made.
Which one have we made? We got two of them.
You're
Which
the,
one, which one we decided to get?
well, the two committees, and that would be the Kiwanis and the
No, I got it with
and the Recreation Committee both preferred the Max Play Fit with the, now, by the way, the fish shack that I will have has a little bit different exterior because I didn't like them being so enclosed. We don't like the children to, I think I've got it here. Yeah, see how I opened it up? And again, this is where it's starting to, they're going to stop working for me if I keep asking them to make these changes.
I got a question. We put $250,000 in the budget
Yes.
for 24, 25.
Yep.
The county put that in.
No, we rolled that over. It's a budget of $250,000. Yes. But that includes my $170,000.
That includes something else. I didn't know you rolled it over like that. I thought when you roll it over, because I looked like the basketball court is already paid for. So I say that's 23, 22. So that's out the picture. So then if we roll over $250,000, I'm not even talking about what's already done. Then I'm looking at the people that donated. Two places donate. One donated 50, and the other one donated 55, and the one that got a handicap is roughly 7. Doing the math, it's already there, because that was money spent, because we spent for the basketball court last year.
That part's
That's gone. So when we roll over in this budget, 24, 25 was $250,000. So if we took the donations that was given to the county, we're looking at $180,000 plus the $250, so we're right where we want to be. I'm just keep it simple.
Okay.
I'm just keep it simple. Now, if you didn't do it that way, then that's maybe the way it should have been done. Because that's the only way we're going to get exact figures.
No.
When you roll over, but that money was spent. The basketball, I ain't want to talk about that. That's done. The pickleball coach looks good, a nice-looking job. Probably the best-looking one around here that you go look at the basketball. Yeah, it looks right nice. And the playground is not about us. It's about the kids. And we did have $155,000 in donations and for this playground. So we keep playing with the extra money here. We make it look like, that it's a lot of money, but the money is divided up. That's why we got to transfer these years over and make sure we got the money in the right place. And that way we know. I never did like holding something back. If I'm going to pay for something, you pay for it. That way I can see it clear. But basically, I'm saying, you pick the one the committee want, and then we got something to go on, and you want to negotiate, you should make it safer for the kids. We're always talking about safety. So safety is the battle one, as far as what you're putting on the ground. So then we're looking at, color-wise, we got to use some type of imagination, because we did use blue and green. So you want to blend that in, and we think about crabs, we think about water, we think about building an area, not all at one time. Because guess what, we got a bigger fish to stir. That's the cafeteria after we put the that tin roof on, but I shouldn't have said that anyway, because keep y'all thinking. After we put that tin roof on and probably do some, what do you call that thing? Build your drawers. No, what do you call that thing? Facility, what do you call that thing? You draw and all these drawing on it? Concept sketches. The mural. So then, and I'm just throwing some at you because I want to see you the whole picture, because we realized that that bridge that he talked about started at $300 million. I went to a meeting, it was 600. Now in a month and a half, it's 700. So what we're looking at now is, do the cost increase? It's gonna stop us to make move on a smaller object. Now, I can hold up on some of these great big objects, but is that gonna stop us? So what I'm saying is that, you know, we go for it and make it right, because the way I see it, the money was already there, because I look at it all the time and say, hey, you've done a wonderful job keeping that pickleball basketball court at 165. But it did come from 50 a couple of years ago, when we kind of like dumbfounded because we didn't improve it. So we just wasting time and we're wasting money. We can talk about as much as we want, but we got to be smart about what we do. So I think the money's there. The way I'm looking at it, 250, do the math, that's 50, that's 300, 55, that's 3. Then you get that handicap accessible that somebody gave us a donation. So the money's there, you know, so we just figuring how we figured out.
You've done a good job on completely confusing me.
That's the general idea. I gotta keep you
So what is the number that we have currently for the project?
Let me start there. We have $250,000 budgeted in this project for this fiscal year.
Okay, then let me back up a second. The pickleball court and the basketball court, did that money for that come out of the 250 that we had rolled over from previous year?
The two very separate projects. So last year, we had both projects budgeted. So the year that just ended, we had $250,000 budgeted for this project and $165,000 budgeted for the basketball court. We completed the court last year. So
Right.
but Matt, when he budgeted, was not aware of that. He wasn't sure when it would actually finish.
Well, it was actually better than that. I got to chime in here because we included the basketball court in this year's fiscal budget too, in the capital improvements plan, because I didn't believe it was going to be finished last year.
That's
And it was kind
correct.
of a little, I bet you can't finish it. I'm going to put it in the capital budget just to make sure we get it done next year. So we did put the 150 in the capital budget. And if it got finished, no worries, that money could go back in the general fund. And if it didn't, maybe there's something else that the board could want to transfer to, and I think that's what Reggie's getting at. The 150's in this year's budget too, because I didn't believe Anne Marie could get it finished. But she
165.
did, and bless her heart for doing so.
thing, but that was the year before you did a transfer too. You put the money over from one year to the next year, and we used it last year, so it's gone. We used it. We can play with these numbers. We used that 165 in the budget the year before that we carried it over.
All-
It's gone.
All appropriations lapse at year end, and the new budget is balanced. So you are correct, but the new budget is balanced with $165,000.
And we proved the budget at 250,000.
250 plus,
The math is there.
yeah.
I don't need
Oh,
to
he
see the
knows.
budget. I
He
don't need to
knows.
see the budget.
Yeah.
I don't want
It's
to
there.
add any confusion to this, but I do want to ask one question before we get too far afield. I like this design, and I think that's what the rec committee picked, is the nautical Chesapeake Bay type theme, and it's got the education placards on it, so you're tricking kids into learning something, and as a recovering teacher, I like that. Are there other components that can be added to this design over the years that can embellish it even more?
Of course.
Like, say in 5 years, the board says, hey, we've got a little extra here, maybe we want to expand Buddy Park and add more Chesapeake Bay themed components, or is that all they got?
Oh, no, of course, we can do a lot more. We were limited by, I told you I gave them I want nautical theme, keep Chesapeake Bay in mind. I gave them a $250,000 budget. I also told them they only had 70 by 70. So I limited them to space. It's because there's a basketball court there. So no matter what Mr. Walker, we are going to be limited by the space that's available.
If we have more space, then we can expand it.
Of course. There are some amazing components that we didn't get. And like I said, the little rocky, I'm sorry, I love those little things on springs. So that keeps being the one that I prefer. You have a young daughter, you probably have a toy at the playground you prefer. But so anyway, yes, there are many more components that over time you can add back into this.
What distance is this being proposed to being away from the basketball courts? Roughly?
It's close. It's probably 20 feet. Does that sound about right?
It won't be no closer than 20 feet.
Yeah, no closer than
20
20
feet.
feet, yeah,
Probably enough for some benches and whatnot.
right. Because we plan to do that too.
I'm just saying, playing basketball in an open court, there's times when the ball gets outside the court.
Oh, well, we have 10-foot,
You have 10-foot fences?
You don't
10
have-
or 8
Okay.
foot fence all the way
Oh,
around.
they're already.
Yeah,
okay,
beautiful,
they've been-
beautiful fence.
Bill, it's only when I play basketball does the ball go over.
And to that end, we're planning some sort of grand ribbon cutting for the basketball court. We haven't set a date, but it's coming within the next 3 weeks, is that correct? Yeah, does that sound about right, Karen? About next 3 weeks, we'll have a ribbon cutting for that. So everybody will get a chance to toss a ball through the hoop or hit a pickleball over the net, whatever. So we're just waiting for some equipment to show up.
So the committee is asking to continue the process. We're not committing to any dollar amount at this point,
I'm asking for it, though, so that I know my range.
okay? Well, okay, let me say this to you. You have two people that have submitted two different diagrams about what they can do, and the cost differs on the high-end playground, I guess. We're talking about $75,000 difference, correct?
Yes and no. The difference is specifically related to how they designed the port in place. As you can see, this is a full-blown port in place, and in the other one, they did me let's see if I can't do it. Their port in place is only this much of it. So if I was comparing apples to apples, right, if I'm comparing apples to apples, they would be relatively equal. In fact, ID Sculpture would probably be about $20,000 more than can't remember their name now, Max Play Fit. So again, at this point, and we're not comparing apples to apples, because they're two very different structures, but part of it is that base.
Okay, well, from a sales side, let me speak to that, because I think I can speak to that
Shoot.
pretty well. From a sales side, I'd go back to the one that you like the best and say, I got a problem with the money. $250,000 is what the budget was. You're at 325, is that correct?
316.
And my thought would be you go back and say, where can we cut some expense? I'll just say this, and I maybe run out the room, but the part where you have the signs on the fence, educational thing, on one of them, I think it was the top
That's this
end.
one?
Okay. I've not been to a playground ever that I saw any kids spending any time trying to learn anything.
Oh.
Never, ever. Have I
Those
seen
are
that?
included. Those are not an extra. So those
Oh,
are
they're not
an
an extra?
No,
Okay,
no.
if-
Those are just
if
included
it's-
with that.
If it's not a cost
No,
involved
these are not
with
a cost
that,
of
fine,
this.
I'm all
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, the one that
think
I
you-
wanted was.
I think you have some negotiating power to go back to them and say, the 325 is not going to work. What can we do to bring it down to somewhere closer to the 250? And I know that you've done some of that and twisted some arms on that, but if they want the project, they may move a little further on what that is. I mean, looking at both of them, I mean, it looks like top of the line that both of those people have put together for you. It's
Okay.
wonderful and nice, and it fits in the budget, it's easy to swallow. If it doesn't fit in the budget, what's next do we need to talk about
Well, I'm sure we could, I mean.
from
I know we
their
could-
side point?
And absolutely, and your point's well taken, because we have right here the pricing. So for example, the ramp, that we could cut the crab boat's 50,000. So they did give us the full pricing right here.
Okay, and again, my point is, both of those proposals were top end. We're not looking at the low end, but there's something in between the top end and the low end that might suffice for what we're doing under a pricing guideline that we're looking for, or at least I'm looking for.
Okay.
Now, that being said, I'm not sure we're not out of the scope of what the addition is.
No, the easy part is to cut that port in place. That was what jacked it over. So to me, they gave me a $250,000 product. So you are correct. It's no big deal to cut that port in place. I know it is warm in here.
Where does the donated money come into play? I mean,
So when we got the money to each time, it's been put in the general fund budget. So it's already been received as a revenue.
okay.
Right.
So of that 250, 100 and some thousand has been donated.
174,000.
Of that 250, 107, so the county is actually, of the 250, we're paying $75,000 roughly.
We're trying to figure out how to make it cooler in here. Do you want to text Dwayne, see if there's something he can do?
They donated roughly $170,000.
That
We
was-
approved 250, regardless what you said, that's in the 2024-25 budget. We cannot sit there and, they gave us the money. That's
Okay.
200, that's 170 plus the 150, $440,000. I mean, we can switch it around and like it which way we want them. But when somebody give you a donation, they get the donation was for the kid park, because you know one of them was directly for handicap accessible. So if we did directly, when we accepted the budget at $250,000, we should maybe put everything in the general budget. We put everything back in the general budget. Well, this one time, we might should have left it alone. And that's all I'm saying, you know.
So if we don't do this project, we basically owe some citizens $177,000. We need to give back to them because they donated specifically for this project, and we put it in the general fund.
Well, and we're not talking about not doing.
No, I know we're not. I just want to see where we are.
Yeah,
No,
I
I'm
mean,
not
we're
advocating that.
obligated with that money to do something.
So.
And
when
my
I
only
was-
point is, what's been presented to me looks like the high end of what it is. And I know you've done a lot of work on it and twisted arms on that. I'm not sure that we can't, and by the way, Mr. Critton just pointed out, we are paying, the educational panels are $5,800 on the,
Oh, they told me it was included. Okay.
well, it's included on a cost. Yeah. Heck, yeah, it's included.
Well, yeah, that is the advantage. They did give me great pricing. So, I mean, so that we knew, just, so you said, if I chose to, and that was what this conversation's about, if we choose to say, you know what, the price is too high, we want to be at the $250,000, that means that we are accepting $175,000 from these people who donated. County's contributing $75,000 towards this. That's what the budget was originally planned. Because I said to the board, I've got $175,000, but I think I can't do a project for that. So the board made it $250,000. So that's how that came to be. But now, if we all agree that the price is $250,000, then I would have to cut, and I'm picking on this one, $60,000 out of it. And the only thing that can really cut is this port in place, or swap out the crab boat for some other Crawley type thing or whatever. So, I mean, that's a possibility. The purpose of this was to make it unique to us. So that was what we were looking for, was something unique to us.
Well, you've done a great job. I don't have any complaint on that. I'll just make sure, and for the public, and nobody else particularly, but this board has demonstrated that we're going to question every single dollar that's being spent here, how it's being spent, and is it wise to spend it? And I think we're being pretty consistent on that, and nobody gets a free green card on that. Everybody's going to go through that same process with us. We've already shown that some projects we've discussed pretty heartedly on the cost side of it, and I don't see that changing. I think you've done well for what you've come up with. I just think it's a little more work. It maybe could be done to see what we can do to come up with the right number at the right price.
And I'm confirming then the price that the board is recommending is $250,000.
That's what you're telling the people that you're dealing with.
It did.
Now, what actually happens might be a little bit different. Does that help you or hurt you?
I got nothing. I don't know how to do any different than, like I said, I could certainly have him cut back the amenities. But
Mr. Chair, I'd
Sure.
like to say something.
Sure.
We had a committee, sports committee, they decided and picked which one they wanted, right? Okay, all right. Or you do have an educational part, but just think about it. It's been a long time since I had a child in a stroller. You may have a child in a stroller that you can educate. You may have a handicapped child that's not running around and everything, and the mother can, educate some of those things that's there. But, to just say, let's cut, and what you gonna have? You're gonna cut this, you're gonna cut that, then what you gonna have? Okay, what's the use of having the committee if we gonna sit there and can't cut everything? I know we looking at everything, but still, we had a committee, we got Parks and Rec, Ms. Reed out there, they got together and they say, hey, this is what we like. Now, I'm gonna sit back and say, I don't like this thing here because it may educate kids. It may not, but I think it will. Because you gotta think about the situation that goes on when you have young kids. They may run around, may get tired, and the mother may have 2 or 3 kids, and they could show them certain things that maybe they can't show them at home if they'll have a book, because most of the time, people are looking at this most of the time. So now you got a little park that people can look at, and they can walk around and see things on boards. So, I'm not gonna sit here and pick. Either we're gonna do something nice, or we're gonna do something half, and I ain't gonna say it, halfway. And I'm gonna leave it like that.
Well, go ahead.
If I may, Emery, if the pour in place was removed, that's $70,000 less. That's within the $250,000
that is exactly right. That is what
without taking
flipped
the
it
boat
over.
away or doing anything.
Yes, sir.
Is there a supplemental cost if you do the recycled tire? And I know the concern, what that is when you recycle those tires, they take a great deal of effort to make sure they get all the metal out of the radials, steel belted radials. And it's a way to recycle old tires, is my understanding. Or are we thinking recycled tire material, rubber material, or are we thinking just mulch?
It was
That's it, yeah.
hold on, nope, that's not it. It's back in this one. It's in the Bliss product where they've got it.
And there's an
It's an
annual
engineered wood fiber.
Okay, so we're not looking at the recycled rubber tire thing? Okay,
But you have to replace it every year.
engineer Woodbine, yeah.
Yes. And I would just,
Yeah.
I was going to say, I hate that stuff.
It never comes out of clothes. Well, we gotta listen to our mothers with young children. It's been quite some time since I've had a kid on the playground, so I'm dating myself too, Wayne.
Okay, so maybe we can help you out a little bit here. Number one, in response to Mr. Jesse, that's our job, to pick at what a committee comes up with what they want, as any budget item would be. Does it make sense? Do we want to do that? And I think it's a great legacy. I applaud the people that are on the committee. I think they've all done a wonderful job, and it'd be nice to have a legacy of a really nice park there. So that's not a problem for me. But scrutinizing the cost is a part of what my job is, and yours. So let me ask you this, with the consensus of the board, if we were to drive that number up to 300,000, is that something you can work with?
I work for you all.
Okay? So I don't know that we need a motion of that. Is the rest of the board in agreement with that? To see where we fly with this thing? Because I can tell you, if I'm on this end of building this, for whatever their number is, what was it, 3.7, 3-something, 3.23,
They're at 316.
3.16?
Oh, and by the way, this tax doesn't, they were supposed to remove that $280, so that was another great negotiation by your assistant county administrator. They had the tax in there.
So just from a sales standpoint, if you come back to me and say, the board's only gonna go 300, and I want the project, I'm gonna cave in somewhere on that project to do it for 300. I might not. Like we're dealing with Hampton Road Sanitation, there's no subcontractors that are out there, so they're gonna bid it high. And I don't know whether these guys bid it high, but if we empower you to go to 300, does that work for you? Can you work with that?
I will do as the board wishes.
And that,
We'll give up something.
Is the rest of the board
We will
okay
give up
with,
something in
with,
that.
with empowering her for that amount?
I got one other thing to say, Don. I done said it 2 or 3 times. Now, what's in the budget, we can play with it as much as we want, is $250,000. We have donation of $170,000.
Right.
I want to negotiate the best price you can get, whatever be the best price. But I'm not gonna kid myself and say we did prove it, Matt, in 24, 25 budget, that we was gonna get at the Ward Playground. Now, how you give somebody else money away, or prove somebody else money that they say, hey, do this on the playground. So I just think we just gotta do things a little different. Let me give it to you different. These donations that get in that general budget, then we approve stuff, it's just not, it don't make sense to me. And this the first time it probably come out, because it looks cool, we put in the budget, we sat down, we approved, say we approved $250,000, when really we didn't approve it because we had donation. So now you're gonna call me a liar. I'm gonna say I approved $250,000. And I kinda knew it was gonna get here. I mean, because of sometimes the way we do things. But I see $420,000. But what I do see, I'm agree with Don on this, because I'm stingy too. So you still might say 300,000, but I want you to feel comfortable because you got a little leadway. Because I think one of them was 316, but I do want the safest thing, like Brother Jesse say all the time, we talking about kids, we gotta make it safe. So the mat down the bottom is safer than this, mulch, it's just safer. And it's something, hey, you face it, it's something that we are doing different, but we got the bull by the horns, and I say follow it on through because, and that's where I look at it. I agree with Don when Don said, hey, negotiate the best price that you can, but how we got the funds and what we did, we can't fix that. We can twist it as much as we want and say, hey, no, we didn't do that. We did it, okay? We did it, $250,000. And the rest of it was plain, that donation for 170 on a handicap, that automatically made it 220, without even talking about a couple other groups that gave, and you say, it was for the playground for these young kids. But see, I don't want to get, we talking back and forth to each other. So I just want to leave that alone. We just go with it. I'm just finished with it right now. I'm finished with it.
And for clarity purpose, Reggie and Don, if you don't mind, can we pull up the budget capital improvements plan? I think we've got it in the budget file, of course. But if we pull up that spreadsheet, you'll be able to see what was budgeted for this year. I think that will help add some clarity.
Well, I think I got the same problem Reggie does. We took donated funds and threw it in our general fund, and then we approved it like it was.
That's the way, but okay, let's go back to that as proper accounting procedures. When you get a donation, you do have to record it as a revenue. So, but I did have, and we were aware that that was set up as a reserve of our revenues. So I never I didn't want to ask the board for $250,000 for a park. I wanted to reappropriate that $175,000. Because anytime, and for example, you'll see me come back to the board when we get a grant. We don't just take the grant, we have to come back to the board and have it appropriated. Even though I've got the money, I have to ask you to spend it.
We need to find a better way when money is donated for a specific project for us to make it clear and be more, I don't know the right term. But instead of just going in the mixing bowl.
That's why I want to pull the budget up, because I'm going to add some clarity that I think is going to be good news for everybody here.
Matt?
It's Excel, just pull the
Yeah,
Excel
but do you know
up for
which
the budget.
file it's in?
It should be under budgets. Yeah, I think y'all saved it. And if you logged in under me, it's on the desktop.
I didn't. I logged in under me.
Okay, well, I don't have control of the computer over here anymore, so I can't pull it up myself. But
I'll go to the website.
what I'll do you have the Excel spreadsheet?
I don't. If I did, I did.
It's on the Excel spreadsheet. So
Oh,
I'll kind of buy them some time to pull that budget document up, but what we budgeted under the capital improvements plan is 150, I think, something for the basketball court, and $250,000 from the fund balance for capital projects. That fund balance number, I don't think included the $170,000 donation, because we based that on the year before's audited fund balance for that purpose. So if we took in another $170,000 in donation, we were already planning to pull in $250 from our fund balance from the year before. That's how we handle the capital improvements project. So I'm hearing frustration over there, and I want to make sure I add some clarity of thought to that, because we're not taking people's money and then not spending it. We had budgeted $250,000 from our own fund balance for this project, and the way I look at it, and I could be mistaken, I'm not an accountant, and I won't bother with finance over there, but we have $250,000 plus the $170,000 that was donated from the community for this project. And, if I may, you also have the the $165,000 that was budgeted just in case the basketball court wasn't finished last fiscal year or started. So you got the money. That's the bottom line I want to make sure I state. And so I understand there's some concerns about being prudent and fiscally responsible. Of course, you should be. But you can always be value foolish on some things too. So you got a good proposal. The Parks and Rec Committee's made a good recommendation. See, I'm kind of going at it a different way, and in this environment, I'm a little hesitant to even say it, but I'm going to say it. I'm more concerned about the other components y'all can add to this in 5 years. Because I think, once we get this built, it's going to be over capacity the day it's built, because we don't have a park. Deltaville has one. We don't have a park in the upper part of the county unless they're at churches. This is going to be used, and there'll probably be a clamor to expand. And I just want to make sure it's expandable. I'm just being.
I don't have a problem with the park. I have a problem with the perceived shell game that looks like to the public that's going on with donated money. Then we approve the money and.
Well, that's why I wanted to correct the conversation, because
Yes.
I don't think if we received those monies this past fiscal year, they're not reflected in that fund balance that we drew the monies from to create that capital program.
I think we need to do work to simplify the process going forward. We're here now, but.
I agree.
somehow no.
And I think in hindsight, you're exactly right, Bill. What we probably should have done is when we received those donations, put a set-aside account and lock them in place, because you're not spending them for anything
And
else
then
other
we'd
than.
be sitting here looking at
Actually, I did.
$100,000 or
So,
$70,000 versus.
It is in a separate fund. So it is in a separate fund, but it's still appropriated through the general fund. So
Okay.
It
Can
is
you-
separated, so I could track it.
We as a board, we as a staff, we need to do a better job. That's what I'm saying.
Can you scroll up, Anne Marie?
Sure.
Because I want to show something too.
Sure.
No, not that far.
I went too
To
far.
our set-asides. So we could establish a set-aside fund balance right now of that 172 that demonstrates that separate fund Anne Marie's telling the board about, that actually backs that completely out of the general fund. I mean, not any separate fund, mind you, but in a set-aside. So
Right.
it's not counted. But I want to make sure I'm clear on this.
Still.
That would be something we'd want to do next budget year, because this capital improvements plan is based on the previous year's audited fund balance. Those are audited numbers based on the audit. Not what we think we have, it's what we know the auditors say we have.
I'm all for continuous improvement.
Roger, oh, well, same here, and it's a good idea. And it probably would have added some clarity that would have saved some confusion. So that's why I wanted to chime in, and I'm sorry for the public, we're going back into budget work session and show the budget that was adopted and the program that was adopted. Thanks, Anne Marie.
Anne Marie, we got $300,000, it looks like. We have $300,000 and we went to Cadillac. And if you can't get it, then come talk to us. That's how I see it. I hope I'm.
Is the rest of the board in agreement with that? See what you can do, work some magic. Stay up later thinking about it.
And I will bring back something at the next board meeting.
Thank you. Okay, moving right along.
Wait, we need to confirm that that the board agrees with what the committee recommended with the max play fit. Can I have that out loud,
Are
too?
you good with the second vendor, this one? That's what she's asking.
Yeah, I think we're okay with that.
I think she just wanted it for the minutes.
Okay, well, from a sales side, you need to tell them that the board's ready to approve it, but they ain't going 316. Their budget is, they've agreed to move from 250 to 300, which is the original 250 of which you talked to them about. And again, I feel bad for you. Because I do think you have worked very hard on it. We just ask you to work a little bit harder.
I got this.
That's why we gave
Yeah.
you Friday off, by the way.
You know what? No.
Okay, let me bring some peace to the valley on that. And if it's the board's desire to set up a set-aside account or set aside for those particular Parks and Rec funds, you can do that on the vote right now. Actually, you do it by consensus. We can make that happen. And we'll incorporate that into the next year's budget process, starting in
done.
July.
think about that a little bit.
But it's done.
We'll
We
think
don't need
about
it
that a
now.
little bit.
Okay,
We won't-
very good. We'll
Okay.
talk more about it in September, then.
Okay.
Or August.
Okay, moving right along. Airport. Yeah.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, of course, Mark Flynn, and right now, what you have before you is the airport layout plan. This is a little bit of a bureaucratic exercise that every airport sponsor has to go through. The airport layout plan is, it's sort of like your comprehensive plan for the airport, saying, this is what's here, and this is what we're going to do in the future. And when you send it to the Department of Aviation, the staff reviews it to make sure it complies, and then what you're going to do in the future complies with the department's regs and any applicable FAA regs. That's what it really is, a planning document and shows what you have. And I don't have the hard copy here. I'm sorry, maybe it's, I don't know. Anyway, in any event. All right, fantastic. And so the county had, I wasn't involved in this particular part of it, but the county had worked with Parrish and Partners, and I think Oscar was involved, to have the airport layout plan done, which has to be done. If you want to move forward, you got to have an airport layout plan. Actually, Parrish and Partners, I think, has completed it, and they're waiting to submit it for when the county agrees to pay in the freight, paying for the contract. You'll see that the total cost for it is $98,139. The Virginia Aviation Board, which I attended back in May in Stanton, approved doing the ALP and approved the funding. That meant it's 90% funding. So that means that, and the way the Department of Aviation works is it's a reimbursement program. So the county, if you approve this, would write the check to Parrish and Partners at the appropriate time, submit, and then the county would submit that to the Department of Aviation. It would be an automatic thing. You'd get back 90%. So the total cost of this $98,000 contract is $9,800. It's particularly important now, and I asked to have this put on now, because, as you know, we're going to be talking about doing the terminal, the ramp, taxiways. Well, until those things are on an airport layout plan that the department has approved, they don't want to consider the terminal project and the taxiway and the ramp. So this is basically a prerequisite to getting reimbursement from the Department of Aviation for the terminal project that we'll be talking with Delcorp about. So it's important to have it in place. It's important to have it in place anyway, but it is important to have it in place now because of this other project. And so that's basically what it is. I mean, the county had already, as I understand it, had already worked with Parrish and Partners to have this done, and this is just approving the actual agreement, I guess, and approving the payment.
Questions to Mr. Flynn? And you and I had talked today briefly. The airport, this layout plan can be revised at
Oh,
some
yes.
point, correct?
Very much so. Just like a comprehensive plan, you amend it from time to time. You do, at least a 5-year reevaluation. You can, anytime you have a change, because when anything is a planning document, this particular, and it's meant to cover the next 10 years, then the department knows things are going to change. It's just the way it goes. So that is not a problem whatsoever. So, yeah. And the fact that something is shown on this airport layout plan, that doesn't guarantee it's going to get built by any stretch. It's just, it is a planning document for the things that are not there today.
Right.
But it's also a fair assessment to say if it's not on the ALP plan, airport layout plan, you can't build it.
You can't, you can build it, you'd be in violation of department standards.
That's kind of.
And they're not going to pay you any money for it, so.
So I'll add a little context too. I know the county's been working on the ALP plan off and on for quite some time, and when the recent proposals started coming in from Delaware Corp., some of those thoughts and processes were added into it. I spoke with John McCalmont today for a good length of time, and it's when stars align and planets align, where now we've got this grant approved, and the state's very eager to kind of work with the county on getting some of this work done because they're excited about some of the possibilities that are in front of us, not the least of which, but not the only, is Delaware Corp's proposal for the taxiway changes and whatnot. Being able to get this funded at 90% is a substantial benefit to us. And it's something the county kind of needed to do anyway. I think the
It
last
had
time
to
we
do it.
amended the ALP plan.
If there had been no.
Before recent years.
Right. If there had been no proposal to do the terminal and the ramp and all that, you'd need to update it anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've asked Mark to reach out to, I know a gentleman in the audience is a adjoining property owner who's been very involved in the airport operations and the changes there too, to go over this proposed concept with him, make sure he had no concerns. And I think he's going to do that in
Yeah.
between now and closed session.
And I will say, in that regard, the airport layout plan, the prior airport manager was very keen on showing development on the east side of the runway in that area that's now just green space. And so that was fine. That's, it may be on the plan, I don't really know. If it is, my assessment of the growth rate at the airport, the new capacity that Delaware Corporation's, all those hangars that they're going to build, the new capacity that will bring in, I'll be pushing up daisies before that east side of the runway ever gets developed as for airport stuff. I do drive a motorcycle. All right, I'll use it. Heather will be pushing up daisies. All right, I love you, but we all got to go sometime. So, no, but seriously, the fact that is shown on there, realistically, I wouldn't see that happening for 20, 30 years, something like that, 40 years.
Any questions for Mr. Flynn?
My only question is, we knew this had to be done. How come it wasn't in the budget? We were going to do it no matter what happened with other projects going on at the airport.
I'm not involved in the budgeting side, the county's budget side of this.
Yeah, the key there was May. I think the state agreed that it would qualify and the grant could move forward in May after we had adopted the budget.
We said we've been working on this for years.
We didn't have any final work. Well, okay, for years in terms of off and on with the ALP plan, yeah.
Well, the layout of the.
I don't know the answer to all that history.
Okay. All right.
But you have a new airport manager.
Yep.
I think things will start rolling along better.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
Any further questions? If not, and this is the preliminary part of what we have to do for the big picture.
Yes, sir.
So with that, a motion would be in order to approve the airport layout plan update.
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse, made the motion.
Second it.
Second by Mr. Harris. Any further questions? If not, roll call would be in order.
Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion is approved. All right, let's see where we are here. Administrative updates. Cigarette tax report only. Staff reports, report only. MPPDC Mill Creek dredging update,
I'll take that one, Mr. Chairman.
and then forest management plan after that.
Yep, and I think Anne Marie's got the last one, Commonwealth Attorney's renovation.
I didn't have that on my agenda. Of course, I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's under
Okay.
administrative.
I see it.
There
My
you go.
bad.
It's E,
Okay.
I believe. A couple of things today, Mr. Chairman and gentlemen of the board, and I do apologize for the heat. We have it turned down to 70, but it's hot outside, and yeah. So we'll just ignore that and press
Okay.
on. Forestry update. Bill had brought up to the board's attention a couple of months ago that, we got some properties that could stand to be timbered. So staff started working on that, and I was prepared to report on it last month, but I wanted to hold off until everybody was here to kind of convey to the board a little bit of an update on that. I had an opportunity to meet with our forestry rep, Alan Sutherland, and a young lady by the name of Lisa Deaton with Department of Forestry, and talk to them about some of the procedures, and I kind of got educated on how to go about bidding out for timber sales. So learned a lot. One of the things, just a couple of quick 80,000 foot view items. We have 2 county-owned properties that are probably something that are large enough and worthwhile to consider for timbering. One of them, the largest of which, is at the airport. That was timbered back in 2006-ish, 2005, and is almost at the stage where it may need to be thinned, but according to Allen and Forestry's recommendations, probably not timbered yet to get the best value, because it had been timbered a few years back. Probably could be thinned, and that would help, or just kind of left alone for another maybe 10, 15 years, and then it may be ready to go. In your packet, I believe, is the forestry management plan that we have on that tract of property. This is the area north of Mr. Perkinson's property along Route 3. And pretty good sound forestry plan, forest management plan that was prepared for us by David Milby, who was one of our forest reps. Kind of put me of the thought in mind that we should have a plan for the track in Saluda, the Lattimore property, and the old treatment plant, proposed treatment plant property that we acquired in Saluda. Get one of those plans done for that. It would cost us about $200. I've already green-lighted the Forestry Service to prepare that forestry management plan for us, and they hope to have it done hopefully by the end of summer. So I reached out. We have a third property in play, and I can't pull up Google Earth right now because I don't have access to the computer, but it's the property behind the animal shelter and owned by the school board. I've reached out to the school. They are not interested in timbering that track at this time. So that's kind of off the table, so we're looking at our 2 properties. Allen, and I don't know if Ms. Deaton went out to the Saluda property, but Allen looked it over and he said that had pretty good timber on it, and be something that the board ought to consider timbering if you care to at this time. In order to do that, though, we've got a couple of steps, and it's something, as I was reviewing Forestry Service's bids on tracts of land that they own in King and Queen, that it became evident to me. One, we need accurate surveys of our property, knowing where our property lines are. Luckily, we have licensed, or at least a formally licensed surveyor. You still licensed? Okay, oh yeah, well, there you go. We got a licensed surveyor right over there that could at least help us find our property pins and our property lines. Because my worry is if we don't delineate the boundaries of what we want timbered, we could have a individual timber private property, and then we have a very angry person say, why did you cut down my wonderful oak tree on my property? And we don't want that. So one of the first steps to do for the Saluda tract is locate our property lines, and then for Dave, myself, and maybe Mark to go out there one evening and flag off our required buffers, as according to the Department of Forestry, from our delineated property lines. So there's absolutely no possible way a timber person can misunderstand what we want cut and what we don't. We flag the trees and whatnot. We did have a situation last time we timbered some trees that even with the flags, the timber person got a little overzealous and went a little bit further beyond. And as a result, we had to plant some holly trees and some buffering between the airport and the Perkinson estate, which we did, and I think they're growing well. So there's some steps in the process. I've already taken the liberty of drafting a bid that we could put out on the street for the Saluda tract. We will locate the property lines and we'll locate the buffers if it's the board's desire to timber that tract. And I would like to wait before we put the bid on the street till we get the forestry management plan back from Department of Forestry. And that's what I had on that.
If there comes a time when we move forward, what is our plan to contact the neighboring property owners to let them know that our intentions are to timber the property?
When we go out and locate those property lines, I'm going to reach out to as many of the adjoining property owners as we can locate. I mean, we have the Bethlehem Lodge, and we know how to get in touch with them. And we know, I think, on the Lattimore side, the adjoining property owner there, it may be a little troublesome to reach some of the others. But long story short, that would be the plan. I don't want us stepping out in the woods, rummaging around behind people's houses or near people's property without them knowing what we're doing back there. And we don't want to stumble on anything that maybe somebody don't want us to see either. So I won't go into detail on that.
Well,
I'm from Southwest Virginia. You never know where a moonshine still's
And
going.
they may want to timber their property at the same time, I don't know.
And
I
that's
think we need to.
perfect segue, Bill. That's exactly what I was going to say. Our property's almost big enough to be worthwhile, but if an adjoining property owner wanted to timber with us, now all of a sudden, the buffers aren't as important. We can timber 50 feet more of our properties, and it becomes a lot more enticing for somebody to bid it. I think the more land we put out for bid, the better bids we're going to get, the more interest is going to be. The other issue that I just want to bring to the board's attention is the topography on the Saluda tract is, we've been down there. You got some ravines. So the property's going to lend itself to be timbered when it's dry, when you can get in and out better. So we need to have some timing flexibility to be able to recruit a good bidder on that. You wouldn't want to timber that site when it's really wet. So that's my report on timber and forestry.
Questions? So let me get this straight.
Yes, sir.
So you and Dave and whoever,
Mark.
I might be interested in being involved in that, finding the.
I can have up to 2 that want to go in the woods and help us locate lines. If it's 3 or
Okay.
more of you, we got to advertise it as a meeting.
Right, right. Well, whoever would like to go, and if there's no takers for that, I might like to
All right.
see the actual perimeters of the property.
I'd love to have you. Yep.
Okay, so y'all are gonna do that, and then I assume you'll get back with us
I want to get back to you when we
before we
have
make
the.
a recommendation to actually timber it.
Yes, sir. I want to get back to you after we receipt of the forestry management plan from Department of Forestry.
Okay, and in that, is there any estimate of what or is that from the vendor that we would choose to
I could
give us?
I could ask for an estimate, but I don't know if Department of Forestry is going to be completely comfortable giving us a number.
Okay.
I think it's something
Well,
we
I'd
probably have to
ask and
find out.
see,
Yeah.
for sure.
Yeah.
Just to see
And
where
we
we
could
are.
have the property cruised, but it's not
Cost.
quite big enough to worry with paying for our cruise.
Right, I got you.
You're right.
I got you.
We'll find out when we bid it.
Okay,
And you can accept bids or, not accept any of them.
great,
Right.
okay.
Once the property is timbered, we need to have a plan how we're going to address it, what we're going to do, and that needs to be conveyed to the adjacent property owners as well.
Right.
Are we going to reseed it, or are we going to do this or that? But I think that we need to have a plan to communicate to them, being that they're adjacent property owners.
You are segueing into more and more thoughts, Bill, I tell you, because one of the concerns even Department of Forestry raised to us is like, you realize people don't like it when trees get cut down, and you may get some complaints from the public, so you better, take that into your thought process. And I said, I will communicate that to the board. And along those lines too, do we have part of the management plan address, are we gonna just allow volunteer regrowth, or are we gonna plant something new, or are we gonna replant, that type of thing? Oftentimes, the timbering folks will tell you, just leave it as is and let everything decompose, and in a couple of years, it won't look like, it won't look as bad, and it will grow back healthier and more sustainable. So that will be part of our management plan, and the board decision to make.
Out of respect, we just need to communicate to the property, adjacent property owners.
And, absolutely, and maybe work with Larry to do a story about it or something like that, get the word out. Next on my list, Mr. Chairman, is the NAACP's event on July 20th. It is my intention to be here all morning, up until afternoon, even if it goes past 12. Good luck with that. You know it's going to run to 1 o'clock, and that's fine. I'm going to be here, and Dwayne and I are going to be setting up, well, Dwayne and I and staff, we'll set up a number of tents back in the back of the building. I think Dawn did an excellent job explaining how she envisions this event to unfold, but we want to put some tents up back here in the back quadrant of the old historic courthouse so the spectators can view the event taking place on the trolley. So we'll have at least 2, maybe 3 tents. We're going to kind of play that by ear to see how many we can fit and where to get the tents up. I'm really excited about it because the fact that this event took place 10 years before Rosa Parks and has been completely overlooked by the history books. As a history teacher, that's something we just need to beat a drum on. And I know we've invited some elected leaders. It's an election year, so if they don't show up, hold that against them. I'm kidding. But, of course, I think Dawn's done a very good job with the handout flyer, and we have some of those available tonight. And that's what I had on that. What, sorry, what you got? Oh, yeah, I'm getting down to that stuff further on the list. I've got it right here. But you keep me on track. It is. Many of y'all have received a packet, if not all of you, have received a packet from Ted Costin, the town manager in Urbana, regarding the DMV discussion with Urbana. I have a recommendation on that. I talked to Ted briefly.
Wait a minute.
Sorry.
What information? I don't have any information on
It's
that.
my understanding he delivered packets to y'all last week.
I've not received a packet.
Are they in the office? Okay, I may be
Never
under
came
a
to me.
wrong impression. Well, then we have a packet to give you.
Okay, that's wonderful.
I communicated briefly while I was on vacation last week with Ted, and he said, we can start this discussion to see if there's some way the board would want to get involved with the DMV project with the town. And having spoken to a couple of you, I think there is some preliminary interest to at least pursue it as a potential. Given that, my recommendation, I told Ted this, I would recommend that a couple of board members that are interested in this meet with a couple of the town council members that are interested in it, along with Anne Marie and myself, and Ted and his staff, to kind of start the discussion. And we'll make sure you get a copy of the packet that Ted dropped off. It's my understanding he gave it directly to y'all, but I may have been under a wrong impression on that. But we'll get you his packet, which has some of the overall numbers and some of the thought processes behind the program and how it works. But like the swimming pool, I think there's nothing like sitting in a room and talking about things and getting things walked through and then letting y'all ask questions. So I recommend 2. Could be 1, could be none. It may be something you just want staff to work with the town staff on and come back to y'all and brief you on. But I did want to bring that to the board's attention tonight, presuming y'all had a packet that was in your hands from last week. But
Haven't
if
seen a
not,
packet.
We'll get you one.
And I'd be interested in setting in on that conversation, and
Very good.
we'll see whoever else may want to do that. By the way, did that call and the packets being delivered, was that you initiating that, or was that the town calling you and saying you had some information?
They initiated that, I believe. And then I had a couple of texts or emails, I can't remember which, it all blurs together, where I reached back to Ted in response.
Okay,
Yep.
all right, not a problem. It just would have been nice for us to discuss this prior to them closing it completely without, I heard about it 2 days before when it was closed and saw it in the paper and went, what?
Well, I think they had to, because it was not going to be in their budget for the next fiscal year, and they just approved their budget for next fiscal year.
Okay,
So that's some of the thought process. Now,
Yeah.
I'll go out on a limb and say, if it's something that the county wants to work with the town on, it may be something that, mid-fiscal year, we can find the money for, and y'all can do. So it could perhaps reopen soon. I don't know. That's something that the committee should discuss.
I'd be interested in sitting in on that meeting,
Roger that.
for sure.
Anybody else? Have 2. 3 if you want to call it a meeting. Okay. Well, then I will reach out to Ted tomorrow.
Staff and I can,
Okay.
we can handle at least the initial, because it may be something we're not even going to want to talk about long-term
All right.
based on, I requested within the last week, well, what is the numbers that you guys are looking at, and where's the downfall
Right.
cost-wise? And I was told 3 different numbers.
Okay. Well, I saw the packet for the first time today, so
Okay, well, maybe that clears some of that up. Because
We'll get it to
I
you.
told the councilman, his question was, you think the county'd be interested? I said, the county ain't gonna be interested unless we have more information. Don't
Right.
just come to us and say, oh, you're interested in that. We need to know where you're falling short, et cetera, et
a
cetera.
little bit details, yeah.
Yeah, who's, is the town gonna pay for the person that's gonna be working in there? So I was a little disappointed how all that went down. It could have been done a lot better.
Well, and it's and in my experience, when you have something like that, it's best just to get a committee together and get it all worked out.
Okay, fine.
Yep. Yep. So I got you, Anne Marie, and I.
That'll work.
All right. Heather, you don't want in on it? She's got her hand on that.
Hey, Matt, before you get,
Sewer discussions, I'm sorry.
hey,
go.
going back to the timber,
Yeah.
you say the schools didn't want to get the timber cut down by the kid building,
Not at this time, no, sir.
and but it's ready to be cut.
I didn't ask Alan to look at it
It
because
I can
they
tell
had
you
told
that
me
it
they
is.
didn't want to.
Then that was the school board said they don't want to get it cut.
It's my understanding they had a very brief discussion about it at a school board meeting, yes, sir.
Has there been discussed transferring the property back to the county?
We had some discussions upon that, or about that, if we had some potential to maybe want to do some economic development on it, and they realized in order for that to work, they'd have to first convey it to the county, and then us consider working with the EDA on it. We've had discussions with school staff on that.
And that's the school board and the superintendent and assistant superintendent.
I've had my discussions with the superintendent on it, yes, sir. Are you
And-
talking about conveying the property back to the county?
Cutting the timber, laying the property back. I mean, if it need to be cut, then cut it. So why do you don't say, don't cut it?
Yeah, I can't answer that. I don't know
well-
what the rationale
Well,
was.
can't we request that to go before the school board and have the school board vote on it for us?
I think they had a discussion at a school board meeting, yes, sir. It's my understanding.
And they didn't care to bring it to a
I
vote?
don't think they wanted to cut it.
Let me chime in on this.
We're wasting the citizens' money if it's going to go.
Well, let me just say this. That will be part of discussion with the renovation committee going forward. So it'll eventually come back to the board, and part of that's going to be, if we're looking at a renovation, we're looking at what we need to do to find the money to do that rather than increase the taxes significantly to do a high school renovation. So, if y'all will just bear
I'm
with me
getting
a
it.
little
That's
bit,
next on my list.
that discussion will
Thanks,
be
Ray.
coming back up at some point.
Well, and if, hearing you, Bill, if it's the board's desire to request that they surplus the property and give it back to the county, that's the process. If we want to request that they go ahead and do that, I can let the superintendent know the board's requesting that. If the school board doesn't have use of the property, go ahead and surplus it back.
Bring
to
that
us.
question up to me at some point
Okay,
over the next week or so, because I want to talk to Tracy personally myself.
very good.
Okay?
It has been a running discussion for several months because it's one of the larger properties that, the county's spoken to the EDA about potential use of. And in order for that to happen, we'd have to first get it from the school board.
Correct.
Okay. All right, next on my list is sewer discussion. We had a very robust and lengthy discussion about sewer in general at the board retreat. Still haven't had that discussion here. Won't have it again tonight, and the number one reason why is one of the principals involved, our engineer with Timmons, is on vacation. He's in Alaska. He heard it was getting hot. He went away from the heat. So we have planned for HRSD and Ken Turner with Timmons to be here in August to have that discussion. I'm probably going to be giving y'all information previous to that meeting. If you have any specific questions, Bill asked some very good questions that we have some answers to. The capacity of the treatment plant for issue, or for what's the term I'm looking for? Well, for example, it's very important for us to know because the Cook's Corner sewer collection system, as it stands now, goes to a pump station that pumps into the treatment plant behind the regional jail. It currently has plenty of capacity for that planned flow for the apartments, the workforce development apartments that were proposed, and our sheriff's office renovation. And we know that because it had plenty of capacity at the time when we started the grant work under the Vibrant Communities Grant for the brew pub and restaurant that was proposed to go into RCE building. That's now not happening because of the pandemic. Anyway, I won't open up all that history tonight. Just want to context it to say there's 30,000 gallons per day capacity at the plant. They're required by law to start planning expansion of the plant once they get to a certain percentage. Bill, I think it's 80% capacity? I think it is. So they're currently under that, even with the flow coming from Cook's Corner. It's going to be a very important discussion point in August to determine whether and how we move forward in Saluda. Since now the HRSD is delaying the interceptor main project, I think the paper is gone, but I think the paper did a pretty good version of all of that in the paper recently. With them delaying the project 3 to 5 years, if we move forward with Saluda in any capacity, in any type of system, we need to know that we have at least a certain capacity at that treatment plant and work very steadily and tightly with HRSD on what connects and what doesn't, at least in phase 1. So if they have to expand a plant or come up with some intermediate step to be able to treat the effluent, they can. Why is this important? Why am I kind of giving you a prequel discussion on it under my report tonight? Is we have an $800,000 grant from DEQ, ARPA money, that as of now has to be spent by December 2026. So we're tight. We need to probably have a decision by September on whether we're going to move forward with deployment of a Saluda system parallel to the Cook's Corner system in order to meet some pretty tight timelines in order to get those monies expended and used before they would have to be returned to the federal government. Now, here's where I say something I'll probably regret 2 years from now. It's my belief, and I firmly think we're not the only community that has this problem, that they have great projects, the engineers are busy, the contractors are busy, they're getting really high bids, projects aren't being built as quickly as they may have because of all the flood of federal cash in the system. I believe, and this is my personal, and I'll call it my professional opinion, that Congress will take action on that and extend that deadline from December 2026 to December 2028 or maybe even 2030. They've already spent the money. The money's already in the states for distribution. We haven't taken anything. We haven't taken any of that money yet. But when we do, and we start expending it, I personally think they're going to extend that deadline. It won't be an issue. But we have to plan as if they're not going to extend it. So before we green light the sewer project in Saluda, we got to know two things, right? We got to know we got the capacity to handle who is going to connect, and we got a good idea of who is. It's a voluntary connection system. And more importantly, we know an amount that we can treat. So we may have to ration the system until we have a better treatment vehicle or the interceptor main comes into play. And two, we need to be communicative with DEQ on our ability to use those funds. I've had preliminary conversations with DEQ that tell me they're being very flexible with us. So they say if you want to do less of a project, as long as it conveys and it's a collection system that meets our regulations, we'll work with you on expending the money. They don't want their ARPA money back because I think they would rather us spend it for a worthwhile project than us give it back. But we could always give it back and reapply under a different program or try to do more principal forgiveness under the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund. I'm already talking more than I meant to. I'll save a lot of this for August. But I just want to give the board a sense of urgency that if you need information, let me know. We'll get it to you. We'll have to have this discussion in August, and maybe even a work session if needed in August to make some decisions on how and when and if we want to move forward so we can let DEQ know and keep that ARPA grant. Lastly, last thing I want to mention on that, with the delay, the 3 to 5 year delay on the interceptor main, we really should return our clean water revolving loan funds that we've been pre-approved for Deltaville, Hartfield, and Topping. We can't deploy those systems unless we have ability to treat the effluent. And we currently are holding up a great deal of state money that we've been approved for under the Clean Water Revolving Loan Fund that can be better spent in communities that are able to proceed. I don't think we need to hold on to those funds for 3 to 5 years. I think we're better off returning those and reapplying. I get a very strong impression from DEQ staff that they know our situation and they will be there for us again like they were this time. I just don't want to sit on that money if we're not going to spend it because other communities need it. So with board authorization, either in August or tonight, but preferably in August.
Won't happen tonight.
Right. I'm not asking because I think we got some time on this one. I'm going to ask for authorization to return those monies and seek that after our discussions in August. Again, I'm confident if we reapply, we'll get them. May even get better terms. So that's all I had on sewer, other than the change order's still there. I think it's my understanding Jeremiah is still working with the engineer on, and the number has come down a little bit after some of the discussions last month.
44, I think.
Yes, sir. I think they're planning to be back in front of the board in August.
On the Saluda portion of the sewer you discussed, the preliminary engineering report said that it'd be about $2.8 or $9 million to do something in Saluda.
I remember 2.4, but I don't have the number in front of me.
2.4.
Something like that, yes.
And in today's time, we're seeing these bids double.
Yes, sir.
So therefore, that $800,000 grant is really only worth $400,000 then.
I really want to ask that question in August too, Bill, because given the amount.
And also, I think it's something else we have to really be talking with HRSD, because there's a good chance they could pivot from running a line under the Pianki tank. They could do something completely different.
Well, and I will say this, I don't think I'm violating any confidences. At the end of their engineering for the current effort of the interceptor main, I think there was some movement in Gloucester to consider moving or having a sewer line run through the northern part of Gloucester as opposed to the Pianki tank. I was on the Rappahannock Community College Board of Directors at the time, or their board, and we were having issues. Kevin now is the representative, Kevin Gentry. We were having issues with some of the treatment plant that we have for the college, and we were making some modifications. And I said, well, if the sewer line ever was to be extended, maybe from Saluda over to Glenn's, they could close that facility and just go on central sewer. There was some preliminary interest on that, but not in the time frame that we needed to move on. So, not going off on a tangent, but Bill, you're not wrong. So, long story short, be prepared for some, you talk trash tonight, you're going to be talking sewer in August and maybe September. And hopefully we'll get some, decisions made and be able to move forward in some capacity. Next, and most importantly, last month, I was pitch hitting for the PDC with the Mill Creek dredging project and some of the grant work that was going on to help make that facility less of a maintenance worry and open up the boat ramp and keep it open for a more sustainable period of time. I said then, and I'll own the mistake now, that it wouldn't be an additional cost to the county. I wasn't taking into consideration the PDC's cost to administer the grant on our behalf. Their current contract ended in June 30th. It ended on the last fiscal year. So in order for them to administer the grant on our behalf, which I do recommend they do, through October, there's an additional cost, and that is in your packet. I think it's $3,600 for them to administer the grant. I would like the board's authorization to execute that agreement and have them continue to be involved in this project. Bill and I met with a concerned citizen who had some really good ideas and is now, whether he knows it or not, kind of part of the discussion on this project with PDC staff, and their knowledge and skill set in that space is something we just can't, with our staff, can't imitate, let me put it that way. So it's my recommendation that we do extend their contract to allow for them to administer the grant. And that money is in the budget because we budget money every year for PDC projects.
Do we need a motion on
Yes.
that?
Yes,
I
sir.
thought we'd already done a motion on the grant,
You did.
that they continue, okay, so what's different on this?
I'm sorry, I don't want to interrupt you. You did, but that was with the understanding it was no additional cost to the county. And there's not to pay the engineer, but there is to pay them to administer the grant.
And what's the amount again?
Yes.
Okay,
And it's my recommendation we do. They've done an outstanding job, and, well, like I said, they're experts in this space.
I'd like to make a small comment on that project, and that is that it seems that the saltwater pond there, that one of the things that's been presented is they changed the way it's currently flowing,
Yes, sir.
which means we're going to have to go on private property and do something with that beach. And when we talked about putting some seawalls on up further on the point, well, we don't want to do anything on private property. So with all the plans, we're doing something on private property. Now, it's my understanding that the person that owns that property has spoken with some people, and Mr. Brown has heard this as well, that they're willing to work, as long as it doesn't cost them anything, and as long as it's,
I don't think it could hurt. I think anything we do out there, if we're going to have a sustained presence, would
I
be
guess what I'm
beneficial.
saying is, all these things, we're going on private property. And I think that we need to make sure everyone understands that, and that may change it a little bit, I don't know.
No, it's a good point, and the chairman and I
And we want
finally
to have
got it.
consent about that private property,
That's,
tell me.
that's right, we got to have consent to do it, and two thoughts on it. The chairman and I finally got out there. We've been trying to plan a ride around to look at some properties for quite some time, and we did it right before I left for vacation. I'm glad we did, because you could really see the problem with the salt pond. The salt pond used to come straight out and kind of, I won't speak for the engineer, but like our meeting we had, she kind of said that when it was coming out straight, it kept everything else kind of more protected because you had flow pushing it against where the sand was migrating. Well, now, and I can't pull it up on Google Earth because I don't have access to the computer, and it's causing me to go through withdrawals because you know me, by this time I would have had Google Earth pulled up. But the stream is coming out and actually hitting the bulkhead, creating that, or at least exacerbating some of the sand migration to be blown in front of the boat ramp. So they think by cutting an 8-foot channel, and only an 8-foot channel, because you want steady flow, keeping that consistent, that would prohibit some of the sand migration. And so that is what they're saying we really should do. It's almost a must. Some of the groins, like our gentleman was mentioning in the meeting, may actually help. They may be more optional, but if the private property owner is willing to do it, my first comment would be, hey, you're protecting your beach too, would you put some money into it and do it while we have an economy scale we have a contractor on? But my second thought on this is, I'm going to try to do everything I can, unless the board tells me not to put this back on the state. And let me explain why. They had I'll call it a pit that they used to routinely dig out to the east of the retaining wall. The engineer showed it on the plans where it was located, where they had an ongoing maintenance permit to maintain this catchment basin. I think, is that what they called it, Bill? A catchment basin. And while that was being maintained, the boat ramp was fine and dandy. They didn't have to dredge sand out in front of the boat ramp because that catchment basin would catch all the sand migration, or at least a good bit of it, into that basin, and then they would dredge out ever so often. For some reason, after 2013, 2010, in that range, according to the aerials we saw in that meeting, the state stopped dredging that, or it wasn't being dredged as often. I want to be using political terms because who knows what happened, but when that stopped is when we started getting the sand migration in front of the boat ramp. My guess, and I'll say it publicly, my guess is somebody retired and didn't tell people, hey, you got to continue to maintain that catchment basin every 5 years. And with that knowledge went the practice of actually doing the work. Because when that work stopped, that's when we started having the sand migration. When the chairman and I were out there and looking at it, you could tell where they used to bring Treco out, dredge it out, haul it away. If that comes to fruition and we do get the design completed, I want an opportunity, with the board's permission, to go to the General Assembly or go back to Game, Inland and Fisheries and say, here, look, we got a grant, we got your design for you, and oh, by the way, if you keep that basin open like you used to, you won't have this issue and you won't have to abandon this boat ramp, which is the only boat ramp we have in the eastern part of Middlesex County currently. And then if they don't, they know me at the General Assembly, I can go and say, hey, this is impacting our community. And I'll probably get Louis involved because he does exceptionally well down at the General Assembly, educating policymakers and lawmakers, rather, on these types of issues to say, look, they were maintaining it and then it stopped and now it's been dumped on the county. Is that fair? Is that right? You can't just say you're going to stop maintaining a state site that you've been maintaining forever because the sand's migrating too much. Well, the sand's migrating too much because you stopped digging out the catchment basin. I'd like that opportunity. And then if that does not occur, if the state says, we just don't have the money, we don't have the interest, we're not interested, we'll work with you on another location, we'll do this, that, and the other, then I think the board has a decision to make whether we go ahead and do it and we take over the site and do it ourselves. But I would like that opportunity. And that opportunity will come right about time of VML, VACO legislative day. But I don't want to do it without your consent and approval.
Well, my personal opinion is you definitely should be talking to them to see if you can get them to pick back up their original responsibility and see where we fall on that. That's information we need to know.
Yeah, and I may be way off base, and I'll just say it publicly. It may be that they were continuing to take the sand out of that catchment basin. I just don't see how.
It wasn't apparent to me that anything's been done on that.
Not for some time.
Not for some
according
time.
to the aerials Bill and I saw in the meeting, not since about 2010, 2013, it's when it really stopped. So,
Yeah.
with that being said,
Why don't you make some progress and see what you can, in some discussions with that.
so for today, what I'm asking for is approval to let the PDC continue to administer the grant on our behalf.
That's on page 163, in the amount of $3,600, $3,667, I think.
Yeah, I think that's
Correct?
That's correct. Well,
A motion would be in order for the MPBDC to continue what they're doing. Mr. Jesse?
Also move, I'll make that motion.
Thank you for the motion. Second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Harris. Thank you very much. Any further discussion?
Yes.
Go ahead.
I I made the statement, I think, at the last meeting, that I wouldn't support putting another nickel into that project. Having said that, I could support this 3667 if I can get some sort of a good idea that this problem isn't going to be something that we're going to be dealing with constantly. If they can come back and say, okay, well, we're going to do it, but maybe 5 years from now or 8 years from now, you're going to be out there again with the same problem, spending thousands of dollars. I don't think the ramp is in a good place to begin with, but it's not a huge amount of money, and if the PDC has been doing this much work on it, then I can support this little bit, but it's going to be a tough sell for me if they don't give us some sort of a warranty on this thing.
I agree. I'm on the same page with you as well. But I think we need to let them continue with the process, and let's make sure we have all of the pieces of information we need before we decide whether we are going to continue on with that or not. I agree. Any further discussion?
We also in agreement to have Matt start working with the state to see how far he can get with them, or is that not something?
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's part of it as well.
You'll get the final design back before that occurs.
Right. Okay, yeah. Cool. All right, so where are we? You made the motion, you made the second, Mr. Crittenden made the motion, Mr. Harris made the second. If there's no further discussion, roll call would be appropriate.
I have Supervisor Jesse making the motion and Supervisor Bill Harris seconding.
Correct.
Okay. Mr. Crittenden,
Yes.
Mr. Jesse,
Yes.
Mr. Williams, Mr. Bill Harris,
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris.
Yes, motion is carried. Okay, moving right along.
I'm sorry, I got a couple more things. I know it's
Okay.
hot, but a lot of this got kicked over from
Let's
last
go.
month.
We're an hour behind, I think. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, so the signs, the board will recall, Urbana asked, or basically adopted our 911 sign ordinance because they found it a little cumbersome to continue to maintain their metal signs, and it was becoming costly for them. The signs have, our replacement signs that we have to put up have arrived. I'm going to be working with the maintenance, buildings, ground staff, and Glenn Nix, our GIS 911 technician, to help make sure that they get erected in the proper place. Phase 1 is only replace their missing signs with the signs that we currently have. Phase 2 is slowly and gradually, once they decide how they want to dispose of or auction off their metal signs, to replace those signs. We probably won't be back in front of you this year. I'm going to knock on wood. But it will probably be some money in next year's budget to replace all of town of Urbana's signs with the county standard. I think the town's still just trying to decide what they want to do with the old ones. My suggestion was auction them off or bid them off, because there's some pretty good signs. I mean, I want Rappahannock Avenue, but I don't want to say it too loud because people bid against me. But, yeah, so and that may be a way they can raise some money too, because they're attractive and they make good wall art if they're not going to maintain them. Any questions on that?
That's part of the plan. We had talked about phasing those signs
That's
in
right.
as opposed to, getting them all and have some rush to get them all up.
That's right.
And that was, that went along with the town's thought process as
Well, a
well.
gradual process. Yes, sir. That's
Okay,
correct. That's
wonderful.
right.
Thank you.
Bill?
On the sign issue,
Yes, sir.
I've received emails, phone calls, Revere Landing Lane. There's a county sign there, and it's faded out to where it's nothing but a blank piece of metal.
Okay.
And they've said they've contacted the county. I told them I'd speak and see what's just going on.
Yeah,
Nothing's
absolutely.
happened. and they're
Revere
really
Landing
disturbed.
Lane?
It's Revere Landing Road, it's in Wake.
Okay.
A lane it is, Revere Landing Lane.
Shanae, will you make a note of that? We'll talk to Glenn about it in the morning.
Thank you very much.
No, very good. Thank you for that.
You kind of segued into it.
Yeah.
All right, now if you start talking like Like him, Bill, I can't handle two.
I'll tell you a thing Carlton Revere and I used to do when he was on the board, but I'll do that offline. Deltaville dredge update. Talked to Dave this morning. We're getting steady information from them. They're in the permitting process. We may have more to report on the Deltaville dredge to update the board in August or September. Where it stands now is permitting, and that's kind of out of our control, but they are trying to fast track it, it sounds like.
You familiar with what happened at Hole in the Wall? What happened at Hole in the Wall? They gotta come back?
I'm sorry, with
The dredging project in Matthews at Hole in the Wall, are you familiar with what
I'm
happened?
familiar with the project, but is something recently happened?
Yes, they, when they went to see how much they actually removed, it was nowhere near enough, and they're gonna have to come back and do more dredging.
I had not heard that. Oh, wow. Well, I
My
know,
question is, how will that impact us?
well, I think we're a little different. I know the dredge project that we have immediately in front of us is the dredging project that's more out towards the entrance. Brian Miller took us out one afternoon, and it had filled in substantially since last September when we went out to look at it. That's going to be the first impulse. I think we're going to be decent shape. But, you know, you never know. But Mother Nature's a fickle thing, and she's going to put sand where she wants. So we'll see.
Do we feel we should contact the contractor and see if that's gonna impact the schedule for where we're gonna be doing our dredging?
I mean, we can contact them, but until we're at the permitting phase now.
Right.
The design phase is coming. Is that correct, Dave? Design of the dredge?
How about contacting Matthews and just see where they are and get the information you can from
Yeah,
them or
absolutely.
whatever, and then we can talk
Yeah,
later.
We'll do that.
Thank you.
Yeah, they've got the volumes, they got their estimates. Okay. Okay. Well, you know, design estimates are good for the day they're made. If we get a storm event like a hurricane, that could change. Yep. So August or September, we think, we'll have an update for you. And the last thing I had, Mr. Chairman, is we've got kind of planned, and I mentioned it briefly to Bill before the meeting, with Jim Nagy, our executive director of the Water Authority, planning on retiring again into the year, and us kind of rethinking what we want to do with the county engineer position. There may be renewed interest with the Water Authority about potentially sharing the cost of somebody. I've asked Bill, and I'm going to ask you, Mr. Chairman, to attend a meeting with myself, Jim Nagy, and Greg Chambers. See, Bill's on both, so we double purpose there, to renew discussions about potentially sharing a position and reallocating some of those costs accordingly.
Let me know.
I will, and I want to try to have that meeting sometime before the next board meeting, but
Okay.
we'll see. It really depends. And everything else I got is closed session stuff, so thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate y'all's patience.
Mr. Walker. County Attorney, Ms. Lewis.
I would love to, but unfortunately, I was going to say,
Yeah.
but
What?
Miss Anne Marie has on 7E, the Commonwealth's Attorney renovation contract with Haley Builders. I'm going to let her, I'm going to tag her
Thank
in.
you.
My apology. I thought,
I was feeling a little
I didn't
left
see
out.
your name on that, so I was assuming, okay.
Okay. The 2025 budget, the year we're in, included a $50,000 capital item to renovate the Commonwealth Attorney's office. This was in order to allow for him space to hire a new attorney, assistant attorney. After the budget was adopted on May 16th, I put out an invitation to bid for this renovation. Bids were due on June 24th. I advertised this bid on EVA, which is the state's site, Southside Sentinel County's website. And the reason why I went to this much trouble is because at $50,000, it's actually, that's the requirement that we do, we go out for RFP, or a request for bid. That's as per our purchasing policy. However, despite that, we only, I have 2 attenders show up at the pre-bid meeting, and only 1 contractor submitted a bid, Haley Builders. Fortunately, their bid at $39,000 was significantly less than the budget. Nobody stated why they didn't bid, but I do know that most of the complications that were discussed during the mandatory pre-bid meeting were about accessing the facility. from trying to get into the basement where the offices are, to trying to get through the security and getting employees approved by the sheriff's department. The sheriff's department's quick, but you have to be approved in order to access the building. Anyway, that's probably why we only got one bid of $39,000. Fortunately, Haley Builders has significant experience with this type of project. I contacted 3 of their references. They all indicated that Haley was on time and within budget. And if the board wishes, you can certainly recommend, or you can certainly approve us to proceed with a purchase order and contract with Haley Builders for the renovation of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office, the amount of $39,000.
Discussion and questions? Well, it's great that it came under what we were anticipating.
Surprised me.
Huh? Yeah, absolutely. Wonderful. Okay, a motion would be in order to approve the amount of $39,000 for the renovation of the Commonwealth Attorney's Office building.
So
I'll
moved.
If I may, a motion to authorize the county attorney to prepare the contract and the county administrator authorize us to negotiate and execute a contract for the renovation in an amount not to exceed $39,000, please.
Okay,
What she said.
are you okay with that? Thank you very much. Need a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made by Mr. Crittenden, second by Mr. Harris. Any further discussion? Great. I like to see it when it comes under budget. You must have looked really good that day that you asked for a bid, maybe. I don't know.
We knew it would, because Wayne and Reggie had already been over, they said, Matt, it's not gonna cost that much. So I was like, good.
Yeah, good, great. Okay, no further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Jesse?
Aye.
Mr. Williams? Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden?
Aye.
Mr. Don Harris?
Aye, motion approved. All right, moving right along.
Now it's me.
Now county attorney update, please.
I do not have anything outside of my staff report, but happy to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for the attorney? If not, unfinished and new business? No? That's because Matt talks so much, we do the unfinished business and new business before we get there. Okay. Matters presented by the board? If you got some.
Well, I did attend the middle school, this plan, this, we went over a lot of things, but, the funding for that, municipal dredge is there, that they're getting from the state. At one time, they thought they weren't gonna get it, so it will be a dredge that will be in the Middle Peninsula that will be moving around once they get all the logistics and tie everything together for it, so it will be moving around. And they still got things to do with that, but, the money's there.
Good.
And we also talked about the North Bridge, the replacement, we talked about that. And also, the Middle Peninsula has a free business plan class that you have, grant money. I think they have like $150,000 money, grants available that once it's a free class, you go through it for a week, and you can get a low-interest loan to start a business.
Oh, cool. Cool. Is that information,
Matt was there too. Matt, I think it was, yeah, go ahead.
I think it's on our I'm sorry. I think they've got a link that we can put on our website, and I think they're advertising it on their website. It's a very good program. It's been one of the most popular things they've done.
should put it on our website too.
And they mentioned a business that went through that.
Yeah, it was a couple
True
of businesses, I
Green.
think it was.
True Green or something, I think.
Yeah, True Green was one of them.
And now that's taken off and is doing great. One other thing, and just no, it's board comment I'm talking about.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Thanks for the update, Wayne. Anybody else?
Is there any update on the roof for the cafeteria?
We haven't had any meetings.
To confirm, there is no update.
Okay, good. All right. Okay, there's no other comments from the board. I'll open for public comment. Anybody want to speak? Looks like you guys are going to be held in jail downstairs, so I know y'all don't have anything to comment right now, okay? I will close public comments. And we now will take a recess and convene downstairs for the closed session.
Hold on, please. If you would like to do a recess, then we can do a recess. But if we're going into closed session, then we need to have a motion, and what's the pleasure? Is it a recess, or are we heading into closed session?
What's your pleasure? You want to take 10 minutes as a recess, or just go right down and crank it out?
And Mr. Chairman, do you want to stay here so we have multimedia capability?
Yeah, I was going to say, we've set everything up, so we're
I'll
upstairs.
board the public out of the room.
We can, okay, yeah,
Okay.
I'm good with that.
Okay.
Okay, well then, how about if, we'll read the motion. There's nothing that stops you from using the restroom and having just a minute while we're in closed session.
Go ahead.
So with that, gentlemen, you need a motion to convene in closed session pursuant to, there's multiple code sections, pursuant to Virginia Code Sections 2.2-3711A3 and A8. This will first be for the purpose and/or discussion, for the discussion and/or consideration of the acquisition of real property for public purposes, and this will be multiple properties, where discussion in an open meeting would adversely affect the bargaining position and the negotiating strategy of the public body, and so that you may consult with legal counsel regarding specific legal matters regarding the acquisition of said property. We will also be convening pursuant to 2.2-3711A8 and A29. This is for the discussion of the award of a public contract involving the expenditure of public funds, including the interviewer of bidders or offers, and the discussion of the terms or the scopes of said contract, where discussion in an open session would adversely affect the bargaining position of the public body, and for consultation with legal counsel employed and retained by the public body regarding specific legal matters regarding, both related to the improvements at the Hummel Field Airport.
So move. I might read it over again, hold on.
Thank you, Mr. Jesse. I need a second.
Second.
Second by Mr. Crittenden. No further discussion. Roll call, please.
Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Let me start over. Mr. Williams?
Yes.
Mr. Bill Harris?
Yes.
Mr. Crittenden?
Yes.
Mr. Jesse?
Yes.
Mr. Don Harris?
Yes.